Good evening. This is an informational meeting of the Augusta City Council, and today is Thursday, August 13th, 2026. We'll begin our meeting with a pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, let's preview tonight's meeting and agenda for everybody before we get to the speakers. We have three parts to our informational meeting agenda. Part A is persons wishing to address the City Council have submitted a formal request to do so in accordance with our ordinances, and we have one tonight, the topic being e-bikes on Augusta trails with Jason Main. Part B is the open comment period for any persons wishing to address the City Council. And Part C are the items that have been submitted by either a council member or the city manager. And tonight, those are C1, School Department Update. C2 is a Public Transportation Opportunity. C3 is Impact Fees. C4 is a delay of the first installment of property tax interest payments. C5 is, or are, land use ordinance amendments relating to daycares. And C6 is expanding Augusta voting opportunities. C6 will not be taking up tonight because Councilor Gary Allen can't be with us tonight. And you'll note that Councilor Austin has let me know that he's away in a work responsibility and doesn't think he'll be there tonight either. So when we get to Part C, it'll be C1 through 5. When it comes, and let's go back to Part A, persons wishing to address the City Council, and that's e-bikes on Augusta trails with Jason Main. Anybody who's going to be testifying tonight or offering comments tonight, we'll ask you to come up to the podium, and he's already there. Identify yourself and where you're from, and we'll go from there. So you may begin.
Okay, I've got some handouts. Do you want them right now? Can I pass them out?
Sure, hand them to the manager over there if you would.
All right, I'm kind of a scatterbrain, so I'm just going to kind of do this off of memory. So I'm here tonight to convince you guys to pass a policy or ordinance allowing Class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes on the Bond Brook Trail system. That's my goal. This is the Bond Brook Trail system, a little picture of it. I only have one picture, sorry. And Bond Brook Trails is, if you don't know, it's 270 acres. It's a huge chunk of land. It's got 12 miles of trails. It's right in the middle of town. The Augusta Trails group put a lot of work into making pretty intense mountain bike trails. Everybody knows what a mountain bike is. They should be over here, I guess. But early this year, what got me in front of you is early this year, me and my boys, we collected 4 e-bikes and started using them exclusively on Bond Brook trails. We modified them. They started out as something else, a moped or dirt bike kind of thing, more like a moped because they could only do 28, but we modified them to comply with Class 2, which I'll go over what every e-bike class is in a second, but we modified them to be Class 2 compliant because Class 2 bikes are generally allowed anywhere a bike is allowed. And it's been a lot of fun. We've been using them on the trails for a few months up until the Augusta Trails group, the group that maintains the trails, made this post that says no e-moto bikes or dirt bikes on the trails. And call the police if you see them on the trails. Grooming issues. And then a day later, I was on the trails on my bike myself, and a police officer on a four-wheeler intercepted my path, had a conversation with him. I tried to talk about local ordinances. I tried to talk about policies. I tried to talk about Maine e-bike laws, and all he just kept repeating is, the guy in charge said no e-bikes on the trails. And I said, what if I ignore you and keep riding? He says to me, well, then you'll be trespassed. So I got threatened to be trespassed because I had a 20-mile-an-hour bike on the trails. And the Bond Brook Trail system, the trails are really narrow trails. They're constantly changing elevation. There's lots of roots, rocks, dirt, jumps, bumps. It is really hard to even achieve 10 miles an hour, let alone 15 or 20. So speed's kind of irrelevant, even though the bike's capable of doing more. Even if you're on a 600cc dirt bike, you're going to struggle to achieve even 20 miles an hour, even being really skilled. In fact, I'd say the fastest things on the bikes are the mountain bikes, the high-end mountain bikes. They've got $1,000 suspension and whatnot. And I've been passed. While I'm on my e-bike, I've been passed by a mountain biker on his own pedal power, just because he's that skilled and the bike's that good. E-bikes, so let me get into what e-bikes are. That's the trail system. Let me get into e-bikes. Most of what you see in Augusta trails are like mine. They're not really class 1, 2, or 3. They're something else. And those shouldn't be on the trails, right? My bike shouldn't be on the trail the way it was manufactured. The law has a paragraph about modifying the bike. You have to update the stickers. So that's what I did. I modified all 4 of our bikes to be compliant with Maine law so I could use them on the trails. And, I lost my train of thought. So my bike's now a class 2 bike. There's other things that are in the something else category that are 6,000 watt. Let me break down what class 1, 2, and 3 are, sorry. So a class 1 bike is 750 watts. It's about as much power as a weed whacker. It's not a lot of power. It's capable of 20 miles an hour, and you have to pedal to get the motor to come on. Class 2 is basically the same thing, only now it has a throttle. Still 750 watts, no additional power. Class 3, still 75 watts. So uphill climbing power is the same across all of them, just weed whacker power, not a lot of power. And then class 3 is back to pedal assist. I've taken up way more than 5 minutes, haven't I?
Yeah, but you can,
This is a pretty detailed, the rabbit hole goes deep. But I'm almost done, I promise.
yeah, okay.
So, oh my God.
Could I make
I
a
am not a
suggestion?
public speaker.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
That you get to the point of what you're going to, what you want to ask of us to do.
I spoke with Earl Kingsbury about making an ordinance, and
Yep.
he was pretty steadfast on class 1 bikes. And he gave me his reasoning, and I don't really agree with it. We had to agree to disagree. I don't think it's right to have, because he cited the Maine Bicycle Coalition and Augusta Trails. I don't think it's right to let such a small minority, which most of them drive in from other towns to use these trails, to have them have full say over our trail system. Kids today want to ride e-bikes. Let's give them a place to ride it. Why exclude 2 and 3? You can't even go fast on these trails anyway. and the power's the same. The uphill power is the same across 1, 2, and 3. What I'm not asking to allow is dirt bikes and e-moto bikes. Those have 6,000 watts or a 600cc engine. You know, those are fast, and that would be dangerous on the trails. But allowing a class 1 or class 2 or class 3, in my experience, I could not operate my bike on the trail with class 1. I'd start pedaling and the power would come on, and it was too much for the roots and rocks. It would throw me off the trail. It was dangerous. The only way I could operate the bike is to shut off the pedal assist and go throttle only. That way I could just pedal through the rocks with no power at all. I don't understand how adding a throttle makes it any more dangerous. Why are we excluding 2? And then 3, yeah, it's a little more fast, but I mean, a Corvette is allowed to go through a school zone, and a Corvette can do 200 miles an hour, right?
So this is the first time that we've heard about this subject.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about it yet. I'm wondering if I could open it up and see if councilors have questions for you. Would you be
Okay.
willing to take questions?
Okay, I think that's about everything I wanted to say.
Okay.
So,
Would you be willing to take questions?
sure.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Jason? Let me ask the city manager, what are the rules that we have presently, if any?
Yeah, I would actually have Earl come up and, because they have had a conversation, and he can tell you where we stand and why we do on the trails for this type of situation, and we can take it from there, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, councilors, Mr. Mayor, City Manager Earl Kingsbury, Director of Community Services. So Jason and I have spoken once very briefly, and then we had a meeting earlier this week. And he's correct, we do agree to disagree. When I look at a single track trail, which is anywhere from 12 to 24 inches wide, and you look at Baum Brook, it's very windy, it's very narrow, and it could be quite dangerous, even just for people on just a pedal mountain bike. So what I have to look at is I reached out to the Augusta Trails Group to get their opinion. These are the folks that, you know, put thousands of hours of work into those trails, and they maintain those trails. We're fortunate to have a group like that at Baum Brook to do that type of work. They recommend and suggest only a Class 1. Class 1 is a pedal assist, and the motor won't come on unless you pedal assist. The Class 2 is throttle. You don't need to pedal, it's a throttle assist. Both of those go up to 20 miles an hour. At Class 3 is pedal assist, and it goes up to 28 miles an hour. So the other thing I did is I started doing some research into the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, and what do they suggest and what do they recommend? They recommend nothing more than a Class 1 on a single track trail. And single track trail means really you can't ride too wide on that trail. If you look at the trails at Baum Brook, they're very, some are moderate and some are very difficult. If somebody comes around a corner, even on a Class 1 e-bike, there's potential for danger. There's potential for, somebody could get injured. And then what I look at or what I think about, separate from the Augusta Trail Group, is if I say, yeah, sure, let's allow Class 2 and 3. Let's allow any e-bike we want. If somebody comes around the corner on a Class 2 or Class 3 and there's an injury that occurs, then we have to think about liability. And we have to think about what does the state of Maine suggest, what does the Bicycle Coalition of Maine suggest. And if it's a Class 2 and somebody is injured, I have to think of, well, everything suggests this, but the city of Augusta allows this. So then I have to think about where the liability falls. So that's where I am with that. We do not have a policy or we do not have any ordinance in place as a city. E-bikes are something that's new. I say new, they're a couple years old, but they're growing. They're growing in popularity. A lot of people are buying them and getting them, and they want to ride them. You see them all through the city now. Some folks ride them on the sidewalks, some ride them on the streets, but they're growing in popularity. And when I met with Jason, I recommended I agree. I think that there should be a place for you to be able to ride your bikes and ride your bikes safely. Much like anything else that we've done with a grassroots organization, the Augusta Trails, Baum Brook, Howard Hill, we have a group of people that had an idea that came together and they made it happen. So I suggested to Jason, maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to start, our own group or your own group, and let's find a place. Let's think about how do we develop something like this that's safe for class 2 and 3, and even if you say, e-moto bikes. But we have to think of something that we can do safely. It is growing. My thoughts are, if we don't start thinking outside of the box and start getting creative and think about a place that we could offer that's safe, and it's going to take a couple of years to put it together, but people are going to do it, and they're going to do it anyway, unless we give them a place that they can go. And that was my recommendation and suggestion.
All right, let me ask Council Lind, is this something that your committee intends to look at or would be willing
We
to
will
look
be
at?
looking at it in October. I just don't have the exact date of the meeting in front of me, but that's one thing. The one question I had, Earl, that you could probably do some research on, are they designed for off-road? Because I know the Class 1, there are sensors that sense when that pedal turns. I think some of them are an optic sensor. The discussion we had at our last meeting was wide-ranging in that not all e-bikes are equal in quality. China is mass producing some that frankly are dangerous. I don't know, you probably know more than I. And I just don't know, as you were talking, whether they are designed for off-road, if they can take the dirt, the dust, with the sensors and electronics that are in those things. Maybe some brands could, maybe some brands can't. I know if they modify the brakes, they become dangerous because the brakes have to shut the power off. I don't know that much about it. I just know it was a lengthy discussion at the end of our last meeting. Nash Callahan, that owns Capital City Cycle, knows a lot. He'll only work on a couple of brands because of the issues with the other brands. So, we can talk after the meeting, maybe coming to that meeting, we can learn more and maybe come up with some standard. My other concern, I think, for those trails, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but I think the torque is a little more than a bike. There's a little more torque. I don't know if that damages the trails or puts them at risk or not. I just don't know. It's evolving so fast, and the brands and the quality is varying so much. I just think there's a lot of information people need to understand. I do appreciate the difference between the Class 1, that one with the pedal. It seems to be a little more like a bicycle. It really is. It requires that you actually have to pedal. As far as riding, you can ride on the street like a bicycle. Same places everyone can ride a bicycle, but I couldn't provide you any answers. I'm just a little concerned about them being off-road. I don't know if they're designed to be off-road with the dirt, dust, and the pounding that they take, but.
If I could just add, and I don't disagree with Jason. I think Jason is a responsible rider. I think he's going to try to do everything he can safely because he's got his kids with him and he wants to make sure they go home at the end of the day. Unfortunately, there's some bad characters out there that if they are on a bike, class 2, class 3, they're going to push the limit, and there could be cause for harm.
Well, Earl, I can invite you to that meeting in October. If you have, Jason's email, you can come. It's an appointed committee. You'll be the public comments at the end of the meeting, but you could at least hear what they're talking about. So if you give me, I'll send you an email, and if you could get it to Jason, that meeting, we want to talk about e-bikes the entire meeting, so.
Yep.
It'd be right here in City Center. I'm sorry I don't have the date with me, apologize, but I'll get it to you.
That would be better unless Councilor Judkins,
I'd like to speak.
do you have a question?
I do.
Okay,
Or a couple of comments, thoughts.
well, questions or comments, go ahead.
So I would agree with you, Earl. Once we set policy, we set it for everybody. It's not like just, okay, we know this one, well, you can handle it here, but it's going to be for everybody. And we have to look at worst-case scenarios and people that really push the limits when we do this. This is very new to me, probably new to most everybody on the council. I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but
I'm not prepared to like say yes or no without really digging into this and trying to learn a little bit more about the subject. I did know that the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee was bringing this up and having some discussion. The one question I would have, it seems like with 270 acres, is that an accurate figure for that area? That, you know, there must be enough space out there, when you say find a space, that a single track operation and one that could accommodate e-bikes could peacefully coexist there. There's got to be enough room. Obviously, there'd have to be new tracks built, something that's could accommodate this and not quite so much roots and rocks and such. You foresee that as a possibility?
I think that's a possibility. I think we could look at other areas. I mean, I don't disagree with Jason one bit, and I think with the evolving and the popularity of these bikes, I think that we do need to start thinking about providing a place for them to go and ride safely. You know, years and years and years ago, skate parks, people thought, oh, a skate park.
Yeah.
But now look, we have the skate parks and the skateboarders have a safe place to go and skate. But years ago, I mean, that's 20 years ago, you know, people thought, well, why would we do something like that? But we're at a time now where e-bikes are extremely popular, and there's a lot of folks on e-bikes, and I think that we should think about providing a place that they can ride a bike safely. It'll take time. Trails have to be built. The trails that we have now are all built with volunteers, and we'd have to build a group like that would be able to build these trails, that would give a safe place for Class 2, Class 3, and enjoy it. So I agree. I think that we should be able to find a place. That's a large piece of land. I'm in favor of it. It's just going to take time.
Thank you.
Council Lynn?
October 7th, 6 PM right here. October 7th. It'll be downstairs in the Learning Gallery.
So the councilors have other questions or any discussion they want to engage in? Okay. So, Jason, thank you for introducing the topic. It's the first time we've talked about it. Fortunately, we've got a standing committee that deals with bicyclists and pedestrian safety issues, and it sounds like they're already got it teed up, so.
One thing I'd like to add.
Sure.
That a lot of the bikes you see are the cheap Chinese bikes. A majority of the bikes, I drive around all day. I do deliveries. If you ever delivered Walmart groceries, I probably delivered them. Anyway, I see all of the e-bikes on the road. A majority of them are China bikes. That's what I'm buying, is China bikes. And by the way, that's an e-bike. That's an e-bike. If I had gotten stopped on those, the cops wouldn't have even known. Those are generally accepted. But I'm on a tangent. I would like to represent the cheap Chinese e-bike community if that's possible, because I don't think there is one. And that's generally what you see. That's what everybody's buying,
Okay.
if that's possible.
When you say you want to represent them, what do you mean by that?
Well, you're
I was paraphrasing others. I think if you come to the meeting, you'll hear the context from from somebody that actually works on them,
okay.
in all fairness. I think you'll hear perhaps his point of view and others. It's
I've
a pretty
seen-
good committee.
I've seen stores that sell bikes like that, and I can't afford it, you know, and I don't think a majority of Augusta can.
I mean, it's an evolving market. It's
So-
changing quickly, and I don't think people know a lot about it. I don't. I think most people are ignorant about what's being produced, so
Okay.
that's the goal of that committee, to try to gain a little education.
Well, August 7th, 6 p.m.
Yep. right
October.
here.
October.
7th.
October 7th, 6 PM. Yep.
Public comment, is that allowed?
Beg your pardon?
Public comment? Other people talking?
You can
Not for me.
come back at the next section, I guess.
At the meeting, he's saying, public comment at the meeting.
Oh,
Yes,
bicycle
at the end of the
school.
meeting.
Yeah.
The committee meets, we'll do our business, and then we open up to public comment at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get rid of my junk.
All right, that's the only item under Part A, so we're going to move next to Part B, open comment period For any persons wishing to address the city council, the way we're set up, at least for tonight, again, if you're going to you take advantage of this open comment period, please come to the podium, identify yourself and where you're from. And as always, the open comment period limited to 5 minutes. Is there any?
Want me to hand these out first, or?
You got something to hand out?
Yep.
Would you give it to the manager, please?
So while he's handing that out, Nick, Augusta, I will say this about the e-bike situation. So he reached out to me when all that happened, when he was approached by APD on a bike trail, riding ATVs to tell him he can't ride a bike on a bike trail. I made a post. And what's funny is right after I made a post, APD put out a flyer saying where you can, they defined what class 1, class 2 was, and they said the e-bikes were allowed on both trails. They didn't specify whether or not one was allowed, one wasn't. And I'll tell you this, the other trail, I can go a lot faster on that. No problem. So the whole speed thing is no problem. You can't even go over 10 miles an hour on that Bond Brook Trail. I rode it one time. I ride the Kennebec Trail all the time. I can go 20 miles an hour, no problem. It's more dangerous for an e-bike to be on the Kennebec Trail than it is the Bond Brook Trail. You know the difference? There's not homeless people sleeping on the Bond Brook Trail. There is on the Kennebec Trail. But what I handed you guys tonight was something that me and 10 other people started yesterday. It is a proposed ordinance. This ordinance is to end the distribution of harm reduction materials, including all drug use paraphernalia within the city of Augusta, and to prioritize public resources for treatment and recovery and prevention and public safety. I got a timeline. I only had one copy for that, but, you know, this is what it's going to take. I do want to say thank you to you guys that did vote for the auditorium. I appreciate that. That shows you guys are listening. I appreciate you, Mayor, for reaching out and wanting to do the walk through Augusta. That shows you are, you know, paying attention and you do care. I appreciate that. And that's what I've been saying from the start, is I know there's people on this city council that are doing good, but it's being overshadowed by what's going on here in Augusta. So that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to let you guys know what we got planned, and I appreciate you guys for voting it the other night.
Thank you. Next.
Yes. Harley, here from Augusta. I saw you guys last week. For starters, thank you for taking the time to sit with Nick and try to create a plan, because he is making a good point, and it is just being covered up by what's going on outside of the building. We know that change is wanting to be made. Number two, the homeless that he is speaking of, they have now vacated Booth B, which is fantastic. Thank you for having the chief reach out to me. He still has. It's been very helpful. However, now they have, as Nick just stated, gone back down to like the Kennebec Trail. They've also gone up to the mill. There's a bunch of places where they're just kind of landing. I think that homelessness is a true safety concern for Augusta. Not only does it bring in the drug use and everything else, but after walking the streets and talking with just a few of these people, mental health is a true concern, and I really feel that that's something that we really need to focus on. I think that the moratorium that you guys granted, that's going to allow us the time to request the documents and that need and that want for that follow-up for all of these programs that we have. So again, I just want to thank you, and you'll see me here and there, but I think that's a focus that we really need to sit strong on. It'll be safer for everybody, including the e-bike committee, so, yeah.
All right, thank you. I invite anybody else like to participate in the open comment period.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, let me just get my... Good evening, Cormac Manning from the Augusta Proportional Ranked Choice Voting Group. Thank you for your time. I appreciate I've been here in this slot a number of times in the past few weeks. This will be my last for a while, as you will understand from the update. As you were aware, I guess you're all aware, but for anybody listening, we took out 2 petitions. One to allow us to use ranked choice voting in municipal elections, the other to make it proportional by electing multiple councillors at the same time rather than one at a time in wards. In late June, we dropped one of those petitions, and I'm here tonight to let you know on behalf of our group that we are now doing the same with the other petition. In other words, we are not going to submit either of these petitions before their expiry date, which is in September, October. I'm sure the first reaction of some of you, very understandably, would be to think this wasn't popular with residents and they didn't want to sign. I really don't think that was the case. And actually, in fact, from our reactions, I thought it was really quite striking to see the difference between the general public, the kind of difference in reactions between the general public versus those who are maybe very well connected or influential in the current system. And that's not a slight against those who are, just that people are coming from different starting points. Of course, there were people in the general public who hated it, and they certainly made those feelings very clear. But there were lots who did support it. There really were. Whether it's a majority or not is difficult to say. I think there was a majority open to it. That would have been the point of putting it on the ballot, would be that we could all find out. But we are out of time, and that's basically the long and the short of it. As you know, there was a strong desire from some councillors to try to have a dialogue on this issue with the council rather than going on the petition route. So that's what we did for the past 7 weeks. Rather than focusing on the petitions, we've been trying to switch our focus to trying to engage with the council. And we really do want to thank those councillors who did engage with us, both those who supported the proposal, but also those who didn't, but who sat down in good faith and shared their perspective, listened to ours. We found that productive. We hope you did too. We hope to continue those conversations going forwards. It was made clear to us that the council do not want to give residents the chance to vote on this at 2026 ballot, or even to hold a public hearing or forum to discuss it further. I mean, you can guess I would be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed, but I respect that with regards to that's your decision to make, not ours. But given that decision, we did have a look at bringing our focus back to signature gathering on the petition, which was still live. But at this stage in the process, it's not viable for this set of petitions. The deadline to get it on the November ballot has already passed. So if we were to submit it now, it would most likely go on to the June 2027 ballot or some other special election with probably quite a low turnout. And I think the time would be, even if we did want to go ahead, the time would be very tight, I think, to get the signatures in the time remaining. So in summary, the good news is I'm pretty certain there are more than enough Augusta residents who would want to sign. The bad news is at this stage, I don't think we can reach them in time. We would like to take up the suggestion of holding a public meeting on the issue that we would organize ourselves. You were all invited. Everybody listening or watching online or on TV is invited. Once we have the details, we will be sure to let you know. And finally, if it's okay, I did want to say thank you to everyone who did sign the petitions, those who may be watching tonight. We spoke with hundreds and hundreds of people. I know for some of you who signed, I guess it really struck me how enthusiastic some people were and how much they really cared about this. Not everyone, but definitely there were a number of people who really, really did feel that this was needed. So I wanted to say to them, thank you for caring. I'm sorry we didn't get it over the line this time, but I would say take heart. I feel like this isn't the end of the story. I genuinely, and people may disagree, but I genuinely don't think the reason that this failed was due to insufficient number of members of the public who were supportive. I think it was more organization on our part. There's certainly some decisions that I regret in terms of things that I made. So yeah, I would say thank you for signing. I would say this is the end of this set of petitions, but not the end of this conversation. There's hope for the future, and we look forward to continuing the conversation, both with them and with everyone on the council. Thank you for your time, as always, and happy to answer any questions if people have.
Are there any questions? Councilor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Cormac. Thank you for the update. I wanted to just thank you and your group for engaging in a democratic process respectfully, civilly, and being quite thorough in your exploration of where this could go and the paths that it could take. I know this isn't the outcome that your group wanted for this year, but I think it's very heartening to hear people engage with their civic community here in their local space. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Lind?
Cormac, I just want to thank you for your civility. I mean, we met, we are at odds, don't agree at all, but you were polite. Thanks for taking the time to meet with me. I can't remember when it was, which council meeting it was, but it was about, what, 45 minutes maybe?
Yeah, it was a couple of months ago, but thank you.
I mean, it's about a 45-minute discussion and the exchange of emails, so thank you for that. Again, appreciate your civility, Cormac. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, respect your passion and your advocacy, even though it didn't progress further than this tonight, but respect your participation and your efforts.
Thank you.
All right.
And like I said, maybe not the end of the conversation. You may hear from us again in the future, but thank you everyone for
Understood.
for this part of the process.
All right. All right. Thank you. Additional opportunity for public comment under Part B. Ms. Ready? Okay, let's move next to Part C of our agenda and the items that have been listed by the council or the manager. First is a update from the Augusta School Department, and we have representatives from the Augusta School Department here tonight to lead us off.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Martha Witham. I'm the chair of the Augusta School Board, and thank you, Mayor, members of the council, city manager, for having us this evening. It was last year about this time that we stood before you and shared with you a state of the school's address, something that this, I think, is our third time doing with you. So I just wanted to start that at the beginning of the last school year, the school board developed priorities that would serve as the basis for the superintendent, the administrators, and the staff to develop action plans to address during the last year's school year. So Mr. Tracy's later going to share with you the hard data on that. And as a reminder, those priorities that we established last year were dealing with student academic growth and achievement, establishing systems for educational excellence and financial stability, and number 3, strengthen stakeholder engagement and community partnerships. We had a board retreat in July, and we evaluated the evidence and the data that supported our progress towards these priorities. We also considered the number of projects already on the slates of our staff and administration. And as the year went on, Mr. Tracy has really, when he started as our superintendent, he'll be in his 3rd year, he's really made some significant progress in moving the Augusta schools from good to great. It was a lot of dedication on the staff and a lot of work on the staff and some of the initiatives that we've undertaken. Not all of those are complete. And even though, as a board, we had the conversation that we didn't necessarily achieve those priorities that I just shared with you to the degree that we wished we had, and that this might be the year to not add to the platter, but rather to widen those goals and deepen those same goals and not add something new. And even though we say that, things have still come along that you can't fail to take advantage of. I don't know if we're going to share with the the late universal bus route thing tonight. So there have been a grant that's come up. Mr. Tracy will share it with you. And we already have the ongoing building project that's already raising some other issues that we're going to need to address as we move along. So given all that, as well as the budget cuts that we had last year that are going to challenge us to do more or at least the same with less, we're not going to establish new priorities. The school board felt that we made progress, but we did not meet them to our satisfaction. And again, Mr. Tracy's going to share with you the data on the state of our schools. When he's done after his presentation, I will review with you what we're going to do in this upcoming school year in regards to deepening those priorities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Manager. Mike Tracy, Superintendent of Schools, proud to be Augusta native and here serving you and the kiddos in Augusta. In front of you are a couple of documents. I think you're seeing a draft of the board's priorities for FY27 this coming year. Madam Chair will maybe talk a little bit more about those. But I just want to highlight, I won't go through this whole report with you because we'd take another hour or so. But just to highlight, the board's main areas of focus have been and are on academics, academic success. That's number one. Number two, streamlining our system. Sometimes in public education, frankly, it feels like drinking out of a fire hose. And the priority number two was how do we run bureaucratic interference and push off unnecessary things and focus on necessary things to increase student achievement. And thirdly, being into the community, engaging with our community, really hearing for real from parents, and making sure that there's not a one-way communication stream, but two ways, working with families and parents on student success. So those three are the overarching categories of those board priorities, and then every year I work with the administrative team to actionize those priorities. So that being said, a couple of areas, just I want to highlight some positive things, and then I'll talk about some challenges we're still working through. Number one, we looked at what are some new programs that we can bring into Augusta. One thing we did last year was bring in the new remote academy. We've started an alternative ed program within the school system. There used to be one a long time ago. We restarted that back, a new program a couple of years ago. Last year, through this year, we added and will be adding to CATC a 9th and 10th grade exploratory program. That's really exciting. That was a board priority. We were successful with that. When the board redistrict students in the elementary schools, really back to what we would consider neighborhood schools, when we had a little more resources and we were able to put programmings for ESOL, special education, similarly in every school in Augusta so that we could keep kids intact in those neighborhood schools. With a reduction of 39 positions over 2 years, frankly, I don't think we're going to be able to keep that tenor. Now, I can't make that decision. You won't make that decision, but the board will have to make a decision on what will our schools look like over the next few years. Some of that will solve itself with the new Farrington project on the east side, but we're going to have to look at what's the best configuration of our west side schools as we examine efficiencies with resources, okay? So those are some things to be aware of. Last year, we made a priority to the administrative team, got in every school. I try to get in our schools. Ms. Thibodeau tries to get in the schools every week or two to make sure we're really seeing what's going on. That's important work, walk around management, if you will. And we made that a priority last year. We call those instructional rounds where we get in and watch teachers teach as an administrative team in each school all year long. We did that. If you jump into the academic data specifically, and I'm just going to give you, it's not in the report. I reran the numbers today to make sure that I was accurate. But I can say this straight-faced. It's not a huge increase, but I'm excited about it. Our math scores in achievement on the NWEA or Maine's through-year assessment. So what we know as in Maine's educational assessment. We are up 1.3 points, 1.3 points in math, and 0.7, not quite a point, but 0.7 of a point in reading as a district, okay? That's grades 3 through 8 and then 10 take reading and math assessments. And I just wanted you to have that information because there's what you'll see in front of you in the the State of the Schools report is us comparing 1 year to state averages and state baseline expectation. And I am proud to say we're over state expectation in most every grade except 7th and 8th and 10th in one content area. I won't go through the entire report, but one of the things we're proud to do is we can't know how well we're doing internally without universal screeners. Layman's terms, what that means is every student now, thanks to our assistant superintendent and her work with staff, have brought in 3 universal screeners, one in math, one in ELA or reading literacy, and another one for social emotional learning. Those will be given out every year in September. So you get a baseline. Everybody, teachers will have a baseline on every student, and then they'll be monitoring student progress and in a way we weren't able to in the past. So that really will have better internal data. And again, it's our own internal data. It's not nationally normed, but we'll be able to at least come forward and say these are the things we look like, we believe we're improving in or not. Couple of areas of concern I will highlight are chronic absenteeism. Kids can't learn if they're not in school. Okay, we last year were at 33.7% chronic absenteeism. What does that mean? That means whether you're approved absent or not, any absent is considered chronic absenteeism. And that's based on what you're considered chronically absent if you're missing 10% of the school year or more, that's 18 days. Okay, so anybody who's missed 18 days or more across the 175 days is considered chronically absent, and we're at 33.7%. I'm not pleased with that number. That's a number that we have not improved in, okay? And so we'll be looking at that this year. The other thing, very frankly, and it's probably not a surprise to you because it came up, I think, earlier in last year, is the graduation rate in Augusta. Coney's graduation has declined, the graduation rate. It is at 78%. It was 5 years ago around 84%. So we've seen a decline in the graduation rate. I can't sit here tonight and tell you why that is, but it is something we're examining, and those are concerns I want you to know we're eyes wide open looking at. We have been working on a number of systems. Priority number 2, and the one you're probably most interested in, is our financial stability. I'm pleased to tell you that I inherited a budget that went into the red 2 years ago, and last year we have a budget that we brought in the black. We were in a pretty strong financial position at the end of this year, which will help make things easier, we hope, for this coming budget season. So I wanted to make sure you knew that, and I can give you the specifics on that. Our new business manager is amazing, and she meets weekly with me to go over any kind of journal entry that needs. So we reconcile our budget, your school budget, weekly, okay? That wasn't happening before Janine came aboard. So I'm very pleased with that work, and it's going well. And the last thing are our stakeholder engagement, and that's our efforts to meet and engage with the community, make sure we're hearing from parents when there are concerns with their kids in schools, and to have a real iterative process working with parents. And of course, the couple of areas, an area probably of interest to you will be our universal 3- and 4-year-old programming that the state is saying, we're going to have to take that over anyway by 2028, and we are mobilizing to be able to do that. I don't have the details on what that's going to look like yet, but I can tell you we're looking at having a program on the west side of the river and in the new school on the east side of the river. I've talked a lot. I guess I'll end right there. Are there questions that I can answer?
Councilor Michoud?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I guess this has been on my mind since the meeting began. If you are in attendance at our meetings, please respect the opening ceremonies. We do say the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. If you have to step out, please try in the future to make sure that you acknowledge that before you step out. Secondly, I'm going to be very blunt. As all of us know, we have gone through a revaluation, and most of us have taken a lot of information from our constituents. And I know, I did the math, my taxes in the city of Augusta have gone up 41% in the last 5 years with this revaluation. I am hoping that when December and January come and we meet and we start this process, the school department is very wary of what's happened in the city of Augusta and the tax burden that's put on the majority of our residents who do not have students in school. And I'm not belittling that, because trust me, the students, our kids, are our future, and we all know that. But we can't continue to tax people out of the city, and this is for the municipality and the schools. We have to find a way to live within our means, and I heard more times, cuts, cuts, cuts. Well, you got more money last year than you did the year before, so you didn't get everything you wanted, but we didn't take money away from you. So just please keep that all in mind, because I know as soon as you guys get back to school, you're going to blink your eyes twice and you're going to start your budget process for next year. So I'm just really asking to start today and be cognizant of what the mountain that the taxpayers in Augusta have had to shoulder, especially in the last year. Thank you.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Superintendent Tracy. Thank you for bringing us this report. I had the opportunity of receiving a copy at a school board meeting that I attended, so I have a little bit of a jump start on this. I am delighted to see the universal screeners. I think that can very clearly tell the picture of what's going on in our schools throughout the year. And I am noting that the data show that for it looks like at least half of these screeners, the changes over time are what you're looking for. The lowest achieving students, that group diminishes over the course of the year. The students in the middle and the higher and even testing out grow over the course of the year. And the ones that I'm very interested in are the ones that don't fit that pattern quite as well. I'm still noticing that the mid to high achievement grows, even as perhaps the lowest achieving are not diminishing at the rate that we would want to see. Is that something that you've noticed in this data as well? And is there kind of talks about what's maybe working for some kids and what's not there?
Yes, we are looking at that. Some of what you're referencing is grade level. It could be the content is or is not taught before the screener is given. But I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Thibodeau to give you some more detail.
Great.
I know for at least the reading, what you're seeing is the Dibble screening, and that's the reading screener. We've now purchased the M-Class Math, which is the math one, so we'll have that data. What was difficult about this is the first time that it had been implemented. It's the first time people were using it, being trained on it, students' first time using it. So that's one part of it. The other part is that we were piloting a new curriculum. We were piloting the CKLA, which is through Amplify, K through 5. Some teachers were doing it, some were not.
Okay.
So the ones that were using CKLA, we saw a significant jump in those scores.
That makes sense. And that is the curriculum that will be rolled out this year?
The entire district is piloting K-8, the CKLA Amplify.
That's fantastic. I think these types of data can tell us, how kids are doing in our school throughout the year. Another thing that was on my mind was students moving in partway through the year as well. I know we have many, especially of our ESOL students, moving in throughout the year, and that's almost like a double whammy. You don't have the beginning of the year data, and they haven't had the time in our district. The other thing that I was interested in is I think I had asked Superintendent Tracy for this data about the overall district moving up in the NUIAs. That seems like a very positive trend. I know that over time, those scores, it's difficult to budge them, right? Because
The point is substantial.
yeah, like we're talking statistically significant differences, right?
Correct.
That's really good to see. And I'm seeing the ages matter too, right? Like the high school and the middle school kids that were significantly impacted by the COVID closures and the years that came after that. And I'm really heartened to see those younger levels starting to pick up, because I think we're able to recover some, because those grades were still somewhat impacted, but perhaps not as much. We're being able to recover some of that learning is the story I see from this data.
Yes.
That's fantastic. One thing I wanted to note was the narrative about the raw numbers of the budget. When you came to us last year needing, I believe it was $3 million additional, my understanding was that that was more than covered by union contract negotiations, and that in order to flat fund the school, not flat fund, in order to run the school the same way it was the year before, that you needed a specific amount of money more than the year before. Is that clear?
It was around 2 million was the number that was contract increases.
Right.
Just cost of doing business, approximately 2 million.
And I don't have the number in front of me about how the school budget ended up year to year. My recollection is that it ended up about 3 million more than the year before, but I could be incorrect on that.
We were about 1 million, and I think it's we're about 1.5 million over last year.
1.5 million.
Yes.
So with those union contract negotiations that you have to pay people what you've contracted, there was, in order to operate the same way, a $2 million increase needed, and you ended up the year with a $1.5 million increase needed. So I think we can argue the definition of a cut or an increase, but what I'm hearing is that the raw dollar amount went up, but the ability to operate the school was impacted because we have to honor our union contracts.
Yes, but we also did a significant restructuring. So any ed tech used to be able to be funded through ESOL money, special education money, general fund money. What I did is we took the federal grants, any other grant that I could possibly get my hands on, and then restructured what ed tech is now called an MTSS interventionist. Instead of being siloed, which would have caused more cuts, we're able to take funding from all of those streams and fund those positions. We have been able to add support to the middle school for that 7, 8, 9 grade for its multi-tiered system support coach. And that person is going to be really looking at the data and then looking at what systems we have in place. So it gave us an opportunity really to restructure what we had in place for the next 3-year plan, but we did it in 1. So
That sounds like a very busy summer, Shelby.
it was an interesting spring and summer.
That answer your question?
That does answer my question. I had something else, and I have since lost it. So if it comes back, I'll bring it back up.
I did just want to say something about the dropout prevention and the attendance rate. That's been something that we've been looking at. And so in that vein, the dropout prevention cabinet is required, and your attendance review team is also required from the Department of Education. So that has now been a committee that we have formed. We're going to meet every 6 weeks, and we're going to be looking at, instead of focusing on truancy, and that's a student that's absent 7 days if they're in a K6, or 10 days if it's 9/12. unexcused. Chronic absenteeism is just absence, and that's just going to be something that we would deal with so that we can start intervening faster with those students.
Makes sense. Thank you for that. I did remember what it was. Am I remembering correctly that it costs about $14,000 per student to educate a student in the city of Augusta?
It's right around, it's a little closer to 15.
A little closer to 15. I would like to offer that I deeply appreciate the reverse Social Security that happens in terms of funding our students' education, because my taxes are nowhere near $30,000 a year. They are a sixth of that. So while my family is benefiting at this point in time, I hope that in the future I can return the favor to families behind me. Thank you.
Counselor Lind?
Thank you, Mike. Trace, thanks for coming down. So I've got some random questions and comments, none of them related to one another. First, an observation on the sheet that you handed out, Mike. Can be a little critical. It doesn't strike me that I'm in the minority as a veteran sitting here. But I would point out that, and this is where I'm going to be critical, you went to great length to name all of the colleges that students went to. I think there were 17 different schools mentioned. You had 7 people that raised their right hand and joined the military. I think you could have listed the 7 branches. I think that could have been, and that type of focus is just the type of focus I'm going to ask that you keep on the forefront. Because I can tell you just from my experience when I was the director of staff of the Maine Air National Guard, I had several recruiters that worked for me. And they kept a list, an informal list. They knew which schools are friendly and which schools weren't. And I can't tell you, it's been 7 years. I don't know whether Coney's on the friendly, on the unfriendly list. I would just submit to you that it's an important option. And the reason I talk about listing them, people view the military as one. We are one, but very different. Somebody enlisting in the Space Force is very different than someone enlisting in the Marine Corps. Focus is different, drive is different, so it's unique. But it does provide an option that's affordable. It was for me. I had a tough high school career, not so good, financially not so good, and it was a great opportunity for me. So I would just ask that you try to invite all of the branches in. Some are probably easier to deal with than others. I can tell you, I think the Air Force is probably great, but that's just me. But I would encourage that. I think 7, I couldn't tell you if 7's high or 7's low. Initially, I thought it was low, but I don't know. So that was an observation. Something I hear once in a while, not very often. In my own personal experience with my kids, I was very fortunate they were able to go to Hussey School. And they were able to stay at that school and walk from my mother-in-law's house. So the movement of students bothers me a little bit because I think of it from my point of view as a parent. That's got to be very hard. Commuting, going to school, getting your kid to the right school. Will the addition on Farrington settle that down at all, do you think? I mean, you talked about the difference with the west side, east side. It's got to be we're kind of are we in a weird spot transitioning from neighborhood schools to maybe a consolidation?
Yeah. Prior to me getting here, the focus was really on having 4 equal, to the extent feasible, equal elementary schools. And sometimes what that would mean is moving students because a particular program might be in a different school for a particular, you might have an east side student going to a west side school to participate in a particular program. Then what happened is as we started to do that, class sizes would fill up and you'd have new move-ins, and then pretty soon you've got someone in a Lincoln neighborhood now that's going to Hussey and vice versa. So a couple of years ago when we really started to look with the board about redistricting, that's what we called it a couple of years ago, to try to put students back towards what would be neighborhood type schools. We were over 300 students out of zone, 300 students, more than 300 students out of their neighborhood school zone. So we really don't operate, frankly, we don't operate neighborhood schools really anymore. The majority of students that go to those elementary schools, yes, are in those neighborhoods, yes, to the extent feasible. As we're going to have to look at that over the next year or two because, again, when we've constrained staffing down, we'll have to put specific programs in, consolidate those into fewer schools. Again, what's been a priority for the board is parity on each side of the river. So whatever we offer for services on the east side, we're going to work very diligently to offer those same services on the west side. So, you know, we're going to get back to not neighborhood schools, but same side of the river schools, if you will.
Because I just think that stability is important
Yes,
for the parents and the kids, so.
yeah, we agree with that.
And then finally, you know, the other night somebody mentioned there were 9 resignations, I think, or something, but how is overall, not focused on one, but overall, recruiting retention for teachers and educators in the Augusta school system?
Great question, thank you. When I came in this is my 5th year and back in Augusta, and 5 years ago, we had over 70 new staff members that summer. By far the worst, you know, as far as attrition and retiring, resignations and rehiring. Every year that number has gone down. This year do you know how many we have at new teacher on Monday? 16 teachers on Monday, and we've probably hired no more than 10 ed techs or MTSS interventions.
So you gained 16 teachers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's some of that we had, and I didn't finish the other night answering, or maybe it was a statement, but the exit interviews and the people who fill out the surveys, the vast number of people have gone to a school closer to where they live, or 2 people got a promotion. So we don't have people fleeing our school system. At least that's not what I would understand that to mean. But so to answer your question directly, I've seen an improvement with recruitment and retention.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilor March Pauly?
Yes, hi, thank you. First, I want to start off by saying that I really appreciate you coming in and talking about the struggles. I know that sometimes we come in and we want everybody to think everything's going well, and right now we have a lot of things as a country that we're struggling with, and if we don't acknowledge those struggles and start working towards them, we're really at a deficit. So some of the things that I heard you talk about tonight that I just have questions about, the alternative ed program. I remember when we used to have an alternative ed program and then we didn't. Is that in conjunction with the teen center, the Bucher Center? How are we running that?
With the teen center downtown, not the Bucher Center.
Okay.
And yes, we are working with them. They have some staff that are there. We have a couple of teachers from Coney that we send over, and so there's some of the education's taking place at the teen center. Some of it's at Coney. It's kind of a hybrid. Whatever the students need, we try to work with them. So yes, it's a great. Thanks for bringing that up. It's a great community partnership.
Okay, great. And then CATC, you mentioned 9th and 10th grade exploratory program. Is that a program that they'll be getting credit for?
Yes. I'm not sure. At CATC, there are these things called integrated credits. So, you know, if you take an automotive class, you may be getting a portion of a math credit or a science credit or English credit. And so I'm not sure what those will account out to, but yes, students will be getting credit.
So essentially, it's an ability to get somebody into the trades at a younger age and give them more time to develop that trade prior to.
Yeah, or explore, you know, they're designed to be not just, say, automotive. It might be, you know, an engineering, electrical, maybe the business academy. So you get to dabble in sort of a genre of elected contents. And then that hopefully they build some interest in something and gateway into a program.
Perfect. I think that's a great idea. In regards to the universal screeners, I think it would be really something I'd like to see is all 3 data sets at the end of the year to really see whether or not that internal data is going to be useful to us. I get a little hesitant with internal data. Just because you're really just measuring yourself against yourself, and there's so many different variables that change just internally as to whether or not that's going to be something that's going to give us data we want.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And probably, in all fairness, you won't get, this was a sample. This was to show you, we've got universal screeners now. Probably not going to bring universal screener data to the council level. maybe not even the board level, honestly. We will triangulate that data against the NAEP that we hear nationally, the NWEA that we're taking in the state, and then other assessments we give in addition to that. But it's really meant to say, here's a baseline, and then is this student growing? Or these, number sense or qualitative reasoning or the numeracy or whatever the subtopic is that teachers can sort of diagraph out, that words and symbols and, decoding, encoding. Anyway, all of those different pieces to reading, writing, arithmetic will help teachers identify earlier what some specific the delta or the loss is for a student, and hope to get them caught up sooner.
So the data set for each individual child is being
Individual.
reviewed at the teacher level?
100%. And that training is being done. Our assistant superintendent has a committee of lead educators that are doing that training across the district. I jokingly said, I'll train the bus drivers. We're going to train everybody to look at this data because we want an all hands on deck approach to improving student learning.
Okay, and then my last thing was the absenteeism and the 18 days or more. I'm assuming that you're breaking that down a little bit more. 18 days really is not, in my opinion, a whole lot of days to miss. And so, a couple of vacations with your family, that's approved, and you've hit that chronic absenteeism, so that data is actually being reviewed, and it sounds like it is at the 6-week timeframe. Okay.
Yeah. And there are multiple reasons, you're right, why people are out. But when we look at chronic absenteeism, it's sort of like the summer slump, like everybody goes through it. Unless you're, reading and writing over the summer, you're likely to have some loss over the summer. And it's that same idea. If kids aren't in school, that continuity of learning is lost, whether you're in Tahiti with your family or whether you're, culturally going back to your home, country, or whether you are sick or have a broken leg and you're in the hospital. Whatever the reason is, when kids aren't in school, that continuity is lost.
Right.
And there's tons of research, like the summer slump, that show it's catastrophic for learning. In fact, I could go on and on about that.
Sure you
It's
can.
bad for kids to be out of school.
absolutely.
Bad for learning.
All right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Superintendent, I got a couple of questions for you.
Yes, sir.
One is to follow up on Counselor Lynn's questions about or comments about the retention and recruitment. Specifically for this upcoming school year, how are you doing filling positions?
Really well. I believe we have every teacher position filled. We have every teacher position filled. We've got a handful of support staff positions that we're trying to fill. I think all of our coaching positions for the fall are filled, so we're in good shape.
Good. I think your part of your remarks about the finances was last year you finished in the black. You finished strong this year. Is it? We're just starting a new fiscal year. Is it too early to quantify what finish strong means?
I can give you some reasons. Part of it was I paid really, really close attention to the budget with the business manager in a way that we hadn't before, which was reconciling. We do this every week, reconciling the entire budget every week. And also, when positions in the special education cost center had been really one of our biggest cost drivers. You've heard me say that over the last few years. I would not let us rehire if we could, to the extent feasible, when a position would vacate during the year, I would not rehire it. So we had a few positions that we were covering, or we'd get a long-term sub in to save some money in that particular cost center. I did that on purpose. I didn't want to do, we had to still follow IEPs and make sure we were being legal and providing services, but to the extent where I could not fill a position, I did not. There were 3 revenue, this is important, I want you to hear this. It wasn't just I have a magic wand and made more money appear. We had 3 areas that we really focused on where we had more revenue come in. Number 1 was we got more money for our ESOL, or our multilingual students from the state. We got more money there. We got more money in our main care billing. I know we've been asked about that. We maxed that to the extent we could bill, we did, and we doubled the amount of money we were able to bring in this year over last year, which was helpful. And then the third thing was tuition. We had more high school tuition students from our sending towns. So all of those together were a little over $500,000 in more revenue that we had not anticipated, which was really good.
So your fund balance is healthy?
That's not this past year's budget, for next year. Yep.
So your fund balance is healthy? Or
Our fund
respectable?
balance is healthier. It's not I'd love to see it at more than 5%, but we're going to, yes, it's better than it has been.
All right. Well, and my last question or opportunity before I let you go, I want to give you a chance to talk up the school building project and the referendum question. We'll be voting before you know it, and I want you to take advantage of every opportunity you have for an audience to
I was
share the
going to
good
bring it
news.
up if you hadn't, so thank you for
Okay.
doing that. Yes. So folks are aware that the Huzzy School that many of us went to is closing in the next 3 years, okay? We've gone through the entire process. It's been more than 2 years with a design process and a district-wide solution looking at where's the best place to put a new school if we're going to build a new school. And it was determined through enrollment, et cetera, that Farrington Elementary School, which was built in 1988, is the best spot for that new addition renovation project. It is, I don't have the exact number, but we are looking at a bond request from the local taxpayers here in Augusta to come out and vote in the November referendum. There'll be a referendum ballot question, and it's a little over $53 million is the request for the bond, and that's to do a renovation addition. It's not quite doubling the size of Farrington, but almost. It's adding 30,000 square feet to the existing blueprint, which will allow us to close Huzzy School and put all of the East Side students in that one building. Does that answer the question, Mr. Mayor?
And with respect to that $53 million bond issue, is there any of that going to fall on the taxpayer of Augusta?
I'm glad, you're ahead of me. This is entirely a state-funded project, so the state of Maine, we have to work with the Department of Education. There's a 26-step process that we have to go through, have their approval, which we were granted last month. Madam Chair and I went to the State Board of Education, were granted approval, concept approval, and so no, there's no local share towards this project. There's been money that we've spent along to prepare for the building, but that $53 million is entirely a state-funded project. We're likely going to ask for a referendum question that will allow us to fundraise up to, I haven't predicted that number yet, but to allow us to fundraise for things like playground equipment or student, classroom equipment and things that maybe, I don't want to say stingy, but maybe the state only appropriates a certain amount for landscaping and playground equipment, et cetera, that we may want to augment locally. So, but again, that wouldn't be built into our budget or asking of the taxpayers. It would be a referendum question allowing us to fundraise.
Okay, very good. Anything else you want to add?
I'll just ask Chairman Witham to close. Thank you all. Oh,
Councilor Morse Pauling.
Thank you. One more question while I was sitting here thinking. One of the things that we approved a couple of weeks ago was opioid funds for a prevention program for the teen center. And I just want to make sure you're aware of that and hoping that the school will work within that to help out with prevention. There are more opioid settlement funds, and we do not have a whole lot of prevention programs for our young. And I know that that's something that the high school will be seeing and working with. And so I just wanted to mention that I think that's a great thing to kind of keep your eye on as to what is that prevention position look like? How is it integrated into the school? Is it working? And whether or not additional opioid funds would be helpful if it does work. So I wanted to bring that up.
thank you. What's that? Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We've actually applied for some more of that from the opioid money and to do support at the elementary level even.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
And the last section for tonight is a preview of coming attractions. So when we, as I mentioned before, we looked at our goals and we want to keep them the same. And so on the first goal, when we noticed when we went over our goals that, well, yeah, there's some data showing that we kind of did it, but how would we really know if we did it? What would it look like? So this year we want to be more deliberate in our, and more focused on what we collect for data so that we can see that and that a goal actually was achieved. So that's going to be one of our focuses. Did you get passed out the sheet for our goals for next year? I'm not going to go through the steps that we're going to do, but just for people who are listening, I will mention that under the student academic growth and achievement, so what would that look like? An overall academic achievement will be reported twice per year and will increase by 3% by June 30, 2027. I know we had mentioned about an increase and how we would be grateful for a 1% increase, but we've set a high goal of 3%. That also coincides with what, as part of the United Fund, and I don't remember the name of that. No, the United Fund, what the goal, the Impact 2032, where we had set the 3% goal. So we're trying to set, if we have to set goals according to Title I with data and whatever, why not keep those same goals for everything rather than have a goal for this here and a goal for that there? So we're also trying to be consistent about that. And comparing at least 2 academic years as measured by state assessment. And our second goal on systems for educational excellence and financial stability, we're going to be looking, tracking via staff survey. Will report improved consistency related to facilities, spaces, and programming annually. And as Shelby mentioned earlier, we really want to make sure that we have consistent programs from school to school. That hasn't been as tight as it could be, so that's something that we're going to be looking at. We certainly will be having all those universal screeners at all of the schools as well. And additionally, the budget process will be improved based on a qualitative level of satisfaction at the voting polls by 1%. So hoping that 1% more people will be in favor of approving our budget. We also have already taken advantage of some opportunities. You might have heard mentioned looking at a universal route for the 27-28 school year bus route and a later start time for the high school. The high school was lucky enough to apply for and be granted a $75,000 grant to actually do the research into a later time for high school. I don't know if you've heard about that in the past. I know it's been something that's been thrown out there, but it hasn't gotten any traction. So they actually did research. The grant closes, I believe, at the end of September, and they will be making a presentation and recommendation to the entire school board. It was really interesting, and I encourage you to go to the webpage to look at some of that research. One of the things they noticed was that across the state, Augusta is the earliest high school start at 7:10. I believe Mount Desert Island starts at 9 o'clock. And so we're going to be looking, I think we saw a preview of that presentation, looking at an 8:30 start time. At the same time, Mr. Tracy has also discussed the possibility of a universal bus route. There would be one bus route for all the students, hoping to save some money that way as well. And so that got rolled into that study as well. Could we do one bus route throughout the city? And what would that impact be on the elementary school start time? I think it would start them 10 minutes earlier, and we could start the high school at 8:15. Did you hear that? 8:15 elementary, 8:30 for high school. That's coming not this year. We still have research to do. We still have focus groups to conduct with the parents, students, and faculty. So that's a preview of coming attraction as to looking at some more financial stability. And on the last one, on stakeholder engagement and community partnerships, and we would like to improve stakeholder engagement by 3% on our school climate survey, which is conducted twice a year. We've worked on some opportunities, but it's really hard to get people in the schools. One thing that Mr. Tracy and the administration has done is that there have been an event at every school once a month, which is a great improvement over what has been there. We've also taken opportunities for stakeholder improvement. We will be having a public forum on the school construction project coming up. So we would like to have people attend that. We don't need a straw vote there. We just need to have the public forum there. So we're looking forward to that. We're working with a community, Shelby's been working with across the city, childcare agencies that provide childcare, including Head Starts and local childcare facilities, for the impact of the 3-year-old program that will be moving into the new Huzzy and the new Farrington project as well. So that's one of the community partnerships we started. And last night at our curriculum and instruction committee meeting, we also heard of an opportunity from, it's called Mattering Cabins, in a partnership with Maine Cabin Masters and Kiwanis, and there's one more, the Community, Healthy Community Partnership, which is similar to the little libraries that you've seen around town. When we did a Midas survey, I don't know if you remember that, it's conducted every 2 years about different things and health from the high school and middle school kids take that survey. One of the things that surfaced in that survey was about 50% of the 7 through 12 kids feel that they don't matter to their community. And there's a lot that's attached to that when kids don't feel that they matter. Increased suicide rates, success in school, a lot of bullying and all that kind of stuff if you don't matter. So this is going to be a mattering cabin that Kiwanis is going to buy, and it's like a little library. And it has little things that just say, you matter. There'll be things that are kept up to date. There could be little painted rocks that kids can pick up, so kids can open it and pick up something. Kids can put something in there to show other kids that they matter. It's a really small step, but it's like, we see you. So that's another partnership that we're trying to nourish as well, and every opportunity we get to do that. We continue to try to get parents in the schools. They're busy. We understand that. They have other priorities when they get home at night, but that's an effort that we're going to continue as well. So with that, that's what our plan is for next year, and also as part of our community relationship, part of the rest of the school board said, well, Muffy, why don't you go to the city council more often? And so my plan is to come to you once a month with an update of something that's happening in our schools, so that when it comes budget time, you've been able to follow our progress throughout the year, and it won't be like all these things we're trying to convince you that's going on. You'll be hearing about them as we go. So that will be part of our plan as well, to improve our communications with the city council. And with that, I don't think you have any more questions. You probably want to get moving on.
I don't see any. Looks like we're all set.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for coming tonight. Appreciate the update. And good luck as you open your school buildings. Next on the agenda is C2, the public transportation opportunity. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll have Earl Kingsbury join us, and he has a gentleman, Peter Carney from Green Light Transportation, who will present. I'll tee this up with, as you know, part of the goal of the council was to look at any and all public transportation opportunities, to include public-private partnerships. This is one we came across as we were exploring KV Cap and other opportunities. Many of you probably know Pete. He's an Augusta guy, if you will. Went to Augusta schools and that type of thing. And this actually came to, we kind of started this discussion at the gym, didn't we, Pete, talking about transportation. So Earl's put together a memo to provide you with what Pete could offer for a public transportation plan. This does kind of connect with our 33 Union Street project that we've discussed. It is a bit of an aggressive timeline because we're still on that September 15th time for the 33 Union Street to get that going. I have talked to the folks at Developers Collaborative. They are aware of this proposal and the timeline and all things considered. So they're part of this discussion as well behind the scenes. But what we'll be looking for tonight is to kind of present this to you and get your thoughts on it from where we go from there. So I will turn it over to Earl to kind of summarize his memo to you all for this.
Good evening, Earl Kingsbury, Director of Community Services. I do have here with me Pete Carney to answer any of the tough, difficult questions that you may have. Public transportation. I've been in this position with the city for going on 6 years now, and at every goal-setting meeting, public transportation comes up. It's been a goal of council for the 6 years that I've been doing this in this position, and I'm sure when I was at the Civic Center, it came up as well. KV-CAP used to provide public transportation for the city. They had a couple different routes, a couple different shuttle buses. When COVID hit, public transportation went away. And when things resumed back to normal, public transportation never came back. I think they struggled to find drivers. They tried a couple different models. They tried the on-demand service. I don't know how well that's working or if it's working at all. For the last few years, I've been working with KV-CAP to try to provide public transportation. Every once in a while, I feel like we're getting really close. It's right around the corner. We're going to bring something to council, and it's going to be really good, and then it falls apart for one reason or another. The last 6 to 8 months, it's really been moving at a snail's pace. Pete Carney came to us with a proposal, an idea. It's a hybrid type proposal. I think we talked about that once at a council meeting. This is basically the same proposal that I brought to an informational meeting. It's a little bit different, but basically the same proposal. I've been trying to get KV-CAP on board. I do believe that they should be the transportation service in Augusta. They have the means, they have the expertise, they have the wherewithal to be able to provide transportation, but for one reason or another, I don't want to guess why, it's just not happening. But we have Pete that came to us about 3 months ago and said, I want to go, I want to do it, I'm ready. And in that period of time from then to now, I was still trying to get some information from KV-CAP so we could have two different types of scenarios to look at. But quite honestly, I'm past that. Pete is here, Pete is ready, and he wants to provide transportation in the city of Augusta. He's been providing transportation throughout the state. I don't know how long, Pete.
Yeah, well, I've been a Uber Lyft driver for about 8, 9 years now, so doing that. And I do a public school transportation business right now, where we take school kids to and from school, and most of those kids are, in homeless shelters, kiddie ventos. And I've got 15, 20 drivers throughout the state and recruiting more. And, if any of you guys want to drive, I can just,
Use the microphone, please.
if any of you guys want to drive, I could do some drivers, I need a couple in the area. Early mornings are good. But, so we transport kids in the morning. We take them, and then we bring them home at night. We do quite a bit here in Augusta. I work for a company called EverDriven, and I'm a service provider for them. So that's what I do. And when my drivers aren't driving kids to school, we have time. So I need to fill that void with some other opportunities for them. And when kids call out sick, we always have time available. So, I have that fill in with drivers, and, so I've got an abundance of drivers that I can hopefully keep going, Finding people is not easy. So, but I've been pretty successful at it. I know, so.
Yeah. So when Pete came to us, he came to us with a proposal for a hybrid type model where the city provides all of the infrastructure. Pete provides the management services to manage the drivers. He provides the drivers. He provides the software. But the city provides the infrastructure, which means we would have to buy a 15-passenger shuttle bus that's handicap accessible, wheelchair accessible. All the insurances, all the maintenance. We'd have to provide some bus shelters. I don't think every stop would need a shelter. But then Pete would provide all of the software, all of the hardware, the drivers, and we would just pay him a management fee and pay the drivers and maintain all of the infrastructure. The proposal I put together, the previous proposal I put together had us buying 2 vans. One was a new van and a used van, and the reason why I had 2, and the previous proposal was if a van broke down and it was out of service, how would we still provide that service? But we're at a point now where we need to just get something going. So now I've cut this down to just one shuttle bus, and I'll look at other opportunities. If that shuttle bus is out of service, is there one somewhere we can rent in the short term until we can get that back up and running? I've been doing some research on shuttle buses. You can find a new, like 2023 shuttle bus. I know it's not new now, but it's new, never been used. You can find those right for about $95,000 to $100,000 delivered. I can't find any in Maine. I searched New Hampshire, and they have some in other places, but delivered. And in today's market, if you look at a pickup truck today, they're like $70,000, $60,000 or $70,000. So I thought $98,000 really for a shuttle bus was pretty reasonable. But Pete's here. Pete's ready to go. I told him that we're looking at a September. I think I called you last week, and we're looking at a September 15th start date. Can you do it? And he basically said, challenge accepted. So the challenge would be, do we want to do this? Are we ready to do this? And then the other challenge is if yes, can we get the vehicle here in time? And if not, I will look at opportunities to rent until we can get the shuttle bus here. But Pete's looking at a shuttle bus with a continuous loop and ride share. There will be some fares, and any fares collected do go to Greenlight Rides to Pete. I think we're looking at, from a city perspective, on an annual basis, about $150,000 to operate this service.
Your Honor, if I may, too, the funding portion of this, remember, would be tied towards the purchase and sale of 33 Union Street, so that those monies, and I'm in discussion with those folks, would be used to start this program. And there'd be a council, if you wanted to continue, there'd be a council order to approve that portion of it to work that out. So when you're thinking about funding, it's in connection with those funds.
Are you done for the moment? Okay, Council Sikowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Earl, and thank you, Pete, for bringing this forward again. Earl, I really appreciate your dedication to this issue and that you keep taking whacks at it to get us closer to where we need to be. I had a couple of questions. One may actually be for Matt Nazar. Would this proposal satisfy Maine housing, you think? Has anybody figured out if that would do what we need to do?
Yes, I talked to Developers Collaborative. As long as this, we have a stop a mile from 33 Union Street that checks the box.
Wonderful. So that is the first gate to get through, right? And then I am really in favor of the idea of diversifying our transportation. So while KVCAP is doing what they're doing and potentially there's a partnership for that in the future, I don't think that closes the door on this. I think having more options is better, especially given how hard it's been to get public transportation up in the city. So I'm really enthused to see this come forward. The other couple of detail-oriented questions were about the ride fares. Is there a ballpark of what that would look like for individuals, and does it vary the fixed route versus the ride share?
Yes. I was looking, I kind of ballparked it a little bit with the bus fare. I looked at what Portland was doing, and I was thinking, I'm right around $10. The other thing is, with this program, I was going to, anything that the city needed to have for people that needed a ride would be at no charge. Okay, I mean, if you have some people that, are on the needed
General assistance.
general assistance, whatever needed that, we'll take care of that as part of this as well, so I want to let you know that. And the ride share is, let's talk about ride share for a little bit, what's going on with ride share. I'm a driver of both platforms. I'll tell you what's going on in Augusta. I turned the app on. They want to pay us $3 to go pick up someone on Arsenal Street and drive halfway across town. So you're not finding any drivers picking up these rides because they're not paying enough, okay? So ride share in Augusta, the Ubers and the Lyfts of the world, there aren't drivers that will take that money, So that's what's going on with it. I won't take a $3 ride. So, as far as the rideshare piece of it, you're probably looking at I'll give you an example of a ride. Stone Street to North Center. You're looking at probably $15, $20 rideshare wise, on demand, there's many different ways to put it.
Yeah.
So figure $20, go the high end,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. It'll be mileage banded,
Right.
so there'll be, within 5 miles, it's X, and then boom, boom, boom.
Right. Like
know,
what we think of with Uber and
Let's put it
Lyft.
this way. In order to attract drivers and to make a successful rideshare program, you need to pay them. Okay? Money is very important to rideshare drivers. A guy will go to work if he's got to make money. Okay? It's bottom line. So, I want to pay him. I want to be the rideshare guy that developed the rideshare system for those people.
So when we think about, I see here that the city is paying is proposed to pay a salary to the drivers. Correct? That's one of these lines here. So the fares go toward additional salary to or is this like a base?
There'll be a bonus program for them.
Okay.
Yep. There'll
Okay,
be a
that
bonus
makes
pro-
sense.
Based on, showing up for work, So, I'm going to develop that as we go. Happy drivers get paid well.
We do like happy drivers.
We do like and just just a little bit about rideshare and everything else. When we do rideshare in town here, we're the first level of exposure that our guests that are visiting our town get. Okay? I sell this city every day. Okay? People come into the airport, and I pick them up. First thing, where are we going to eat? Where's a good place to go eat? Where am I going here? What's going on in town? So, it's good to have that. They're a front line to our visitors in the area.
I've certainly experienced that other places that a rideshare can make or break a first experience for sure.
And it's a fun job. Let me tell you. People tell me things that you wouldn't believe. So,
This conversation is kind of answering one of my other questions that the drivers are not city employees, correct? They are employed by Pete, your business.
correct.
So that we're not taking on like FTEs on the city side. Okay. My last question, I think, is for city manager. So I recall the purchase agreement being $500,000. Is that correct?
Yep.
Is there a possibility of us using a reserve account for that in order to pay for this for multiple years?
Yeah, certainly. This would be the first, to get the program going is my thought process. Obviously, you all make that decision, but to continue that, we could look at those types of options as well, and other, creative style funding sources.
Yeah, I would be interested in looking into that. I imagine if we look at 150 for the first year, that leaves 350, so we might be able to get 4 years possibly out of it. Potentially, depending on interest rates and things like that, we might be able to utilize that funding for a longer period of time.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
I had Councilor Lind and Councilor Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Councilor Sinkowitz kind of got to one of my questions was, earlier, if you read the letter, it's a little contradictory where it said we're going to pay the drivers. We won't be paying the drivers. We're going to be paying a fee to Greenlight Rides, correct?
Correct.
I want to make sure that's very clear, that there's no, from an HR perspective, you could get in trouble sometimes with contract employees. There's a fine line. I just want to make sure that line is a bright line. They're not our employees, not our workers' comp problems, not our complaint problems. They will solely be Greenlight Rides problems. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Yep.
A couple things. So I would caution you to say provide rides. The warming center is a place that needs rides. So you talk about 50 people in the morning that might need to get somewhere. That might be a demand that you might want to think about. I'm glad you mentioned the airport. Hopefully we'll have jet service coming soon in the fall. So there's going to be a demand there also for rides. The bus stops, Earl, I don't know if Maine DOT has any grants for that. I'm curious about that. And sometimes you can find pots of money over there for strange things, but I can't believe there's many communities asking for bus stops. Might be worth a call, you know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I would have to work with Matt Nazar and his department on anything like that.
Yep.
That's just another level, but yeah.
And that is about all I had. The money was answered. If we could just, one more thing. I don't think the public understands the nuance of 33 Union and the financing and how this kind of ties to that.
Sure.
This is a really important piece of that. I mean,
Yeah.
we kind of threw it around, but it was kind of an internal discussion that people watching are probably scratching their head.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I know we've mentioned it here or there, but for those who aren't aware of the history with 33 Union Street, that used to be the police department and the housing authority. And when we left there, we put it out to RFP, had some bids on that, and the successful bidder was a company called Developers Collaborative that was going to develop that into low-income housing, and with the connection to the daycare at the YMCA, and there were some other things with that, for a purchase and sale price of $500,000. That has been some time now. It's still under a purchase and sale. That hasn't been executed. But part of our working with them is they are trying to get their capital stack, if you will, to fund this project. One of the things they're looking for Main State housing funding to get points, if you will, in order to be funded for the project, needs a public transportation component in the city. And in this case, a mile from that location stop. So we've tried to work really hard to get that public transportation part. So that's where it's connected, and we have an agreement ready to go with Developers Collaborative that our city attorney has already looked at and vetted, that essentially says if we can get public transportation a mile from that location, which this proposal would check that box, then we could they would buy the property for $500,000. It would now be theirs, not ours, and we could use that funding for anything to include, as long as we provided that transportation. So again, it's a lofty lift at this time because we're running out of time. You know, we would have liked this to obviously come to us earlier, but you know, my thought process, and I've talked to developers, that if we can't meet this timeline, at least we've got this ball rolling, and perhaps we can continue either with developers in another agreement or another way. But we haven't actually executed what we talked about. There will need to be a council order that gives the permission to enter into an agreement to access these funds in order to pay for this type of program. But thank you, Councilor Lynn, for that opportunity to talk about the history. And I will say, just to add on to that, because it was part of this, is I have had discussions with Corporation Counsel, and there are some nuances with this agreement, you know, that he would look at, he being Cameron Ferrante, our Corporation Counsel, you know, one being the ownership of the bus. You know, he would prefer, our attorneys are always looking at, you know, different things that, you know, Greenlight owns the bus and we pay them. But, you know, I talked about CTV7 and the way that works. And we have a private-public partnership where we own the infrastructure. So he's amicable to putting together something that covers us and our risk in this. He knows about this proposal and is ready to dig into that if we decide to move this forward.
Councilor Lilly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we know how many actual stops there would be and where they will be? I know it says 4 actual shelters, but you said there might not even need those shelters. Would there be more than 4?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't fully vetted that out, but I put some stuff on paper, and I thought, where are the people that need the rides the most, and where do they need to go? And some of the places that I've just put down, and I'm sure that it's going to be more conversation regarding this, but I thought, you know, the Calumet Playground would be a pickup spot, St. Augustine Church, Chateau Cushnock, the Glenridge Drive Apartments, KVYMCA, which is right around the corner from 33 Commercial Street, 33 Union Street. Commercial Street would be another pickup, so it would hit the Water Street area. Augusta Crossing, we'd have 2 stops at Augusta Crossing, so one at like Target and one down by the pet store. Marketplace, probably 2 stops at the Marketplace, so you're up in the where the Home Depot area is, and then go down in where the Kohl's area is. I thought Main General, the Cancer Center, Shaw's, Hannaford, and then the Dairy Queen on Bangor Street. Those are just some of that I came up with. I'm sure there's going to be more conversation. I'm sure other people have other ideas of where there would be some good spots for stops. But that's what I just came up with, and that's just me, and I'm no expert at that, but.
And you're thinking that not every single one of those would need a shelter, though?
Correct. I thought if we had a shelter closer to where some of the elderly folks are, so that they could get in under shelter, that would be more ideal. We already have a shelter down on Commercial Street. I thought if we had 4 more, like around Chateau Cushnock, Glen Ridge, some of those areas, and then the others would just be, if you drive around Portland, they have the bus stop here without a shelter. So that's why I put 4, but could be less, could be more.
No, that's helpful. I was just making sure that it was more than 4 stops, so that's perfect there. Do we know if there are any other communities around us that have a partnership like this that have been successful?
I don't know of any.
I don't know of any. We've looked high and low for this, and this was an option that we really just tried to take get creative and think out of the box. And some of the ideas that came from council with, telling us to look at private-public partnerships.
And then the other part too is I'm looking at the hours, 8 to 5 and 8 to 12 on Saturday. And maybe this is a question for Pete and his team, but depending on where you see the amount of people using the actual service, is there a possibility that those could be altered or could be expanded depending on seeing the need for it?
Yeah, it's kind of we're going to learn what's going on as we go, I think. I don't know how it's going to go.
Okay.
You may need to add 3 buses, who knows, right?
Yep.
I mean, put it this way, the whole River Valley needs to be covered. And we're just doing Augusta. If you go a quarter of a mile down the road into Hollowell, you end up with a whole other market. It's there. It's a need that's unanswered right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a firm believer that KV Cap probably is your, the right person or the right group to do this, but if you can't work with them, you can't work with them, so.
Thank you. And that kind of answers my next question. I know that there's a on-demand service part. Is that going to be directed towards just Augusta, or would that taking people to Hollowell or?
Austin, if you want, sir.
Well, maybe not. But okay, those answer my questions. Thank you.
Councilor Michu?
Mr. Carney, it's Peter, right?
Yes, sir.
Actually, the last 2 questions that got answered in regards to potential spots and potential times of service and expansions and everything else, Councilor Lilly asked the questions that I was going to ask. But thank you very much for coming tonight. And, if your program moves forward, I wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you.
Councilor Judkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pete, I think this is a great idea. I knew, and Councilor Annalee Morris-Pauley, myself brought this up here a few months back. And I think we very much knew of the difficulties that KV Cap had when they were running the system. It was pretty undependable. And, they're exhibiting some of that and maybe some of their management abilities because, it's been start, stop, and never really able to pull things together. So I think with our discussion, we realized we were either going to, A, have to do it ourselves, or B, some kind of a public-private partnership where we kind of shared the load. And, clearly that is what's more affordable. We can do this. This is affordable. You say 6 years, Earl. I've been on here 8 years now. Our most senior counselor, Counselor Lynn, been here 9. It's perennial. It's always brought up. Our constituents ask about this all the time. And part of what our responsibility is to do for the people, what the people can't do for themselves, but they really need. And this has been staring us in the face for so long, and it's part of what's going to help our community grow. I think that being able to work with you allows us customization. You're going to look at the data. You're going to say, hey, this route's working, these stops I'm picking people up, or I'm not. I mean, initially, until we get the word out, it's going to feel slow, probably, in a lot of things, but it's going to grow. And I think if we establish a base, and we actually talked about, could we rope in Hollowell? Could it go down as far as Gardner? Could you then do both sides of the river? Well, these are places we can grow into. But let's start here. Let's start a basic base route, one that will satisfy the Union Street situation, but it's not just Union Street. There's a whole lot of other reasons we need this besides just that project. I mean, that's kind of, certainly been a little bit of a catalyst time-wise, and I'm not so sure that if we actually had a signed agreement, something on paper, that might satisfy them when they're scoring. It may not have to be up and running yet. I'm not sure. But that's something to explore. It shouldn't slow us down. We should move ahead as quick as we can. Full throttle, pardon the pun. So I think that this is going to allow us, I think we can talk with you to say, hey, could we add a spot? Could we not? I feel like we've got a good working partner. I've known you for a long time. I know your abilities and your commitment when you set your mind to things. And this feels right to me. So I'm going to be a yes vote on this.
Councilor Morris-Polly.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. I really like this proposal. I'd like to echo a little bit about what Councillor Judkins said, is that this is something that our city needs. It needs it for economic growth. It needs it for the needs of a lot and a growing number of our constituents here. So I also have to concur, Pete, that you have been in Augusta for many years. I have seen you in other roles, and a lot of individuals, know you and feel comfortable coming to you. And so I think that this is a really good match for what it is that your personality is. I also think that maybe a possibility of exploring opioid funds if we include a treatment run places that we are stopping, if we're going to places such as Maine General, or we're stopping at the warming shelter in the morning, things like that, that I do think that we could probably tap into some opioid funds for the cost of the van. So if we could explore that may give us the ability to have this money last a little bit longer. And I do think that it's appropriate if we are working with individuals who have treatment needs and the ability to get them where they need to go for that. So, but thank you very much, and thank you, Pete, for bringing this forward. I am 100% behind this.
Councilor Lind.
Pete, I kind of want to dig into the rideshare thing a little bit, two perspectives. So
Sure.
First, why Uber and Lyft, why do they pay so low in this area if there's such a demand?
You want my opinion?
Yes.
Greed. They're taking, they just started making money, a few years ago. So I think they need to cash in.
'Cause I foresee, I don't know if you know that, and I hope we'll get this jet service. It's a 32-passenger jet.
Yeah.
So you're talking, let's say if it's even half full, 15 people landing here. I just was hoping that would generate more Uber, more Lyft, more rideshare. So with your rideshare proposal, are you talking about direct competition with Uber and Lyft?
I'll have a full app, just like this.
Okay. Drivers, multiple drivers. So if the plane lands, 32-passenger plane lands, 32 people get off, and they need to get to 10 different places.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. We can meet that demand.
Yeah.
Yep.
Usually they're doing a lot of rental cars and things like that. When rental cars are out, which happens frequently as well, you know.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I was a government traveler up until 2019, and I avoided rental cars as much as I could. I used Uber and Lyft as much as I could just because it was easier.
That's why I got into it, because I'd show up, I was an on-the-road salesman for many years, and I'd show up in a town, I didn't feel like driving anymore, I'd just grab an
Right.
Uber or Lyft. You know?
Right. And the hassle of the rental car and all.
And you
so.
find out what's going on in town from the Uber driver.
I just see demand 5-10 years down the road, if not 2 or 3 years down the road with that jet service coming in. That's my vision, and I'd love to see it. So thank you. Yep.
With respect to the rideshare, the drivers doing the rideshare, they'll be driving their own personal vehicles?
That's correct.
So,
Correct.
yeah, so when it comes to the rideshare piece, although it's part of the package, it's really not much of a subsidy, if any, by the city for the rideshare piece, is there?
There's a $10,000 annual fee with the state,
Okay,
okay? And
That's what that
and the
is.
state instituted that. There was a bill that came about when Uber and Lyft came up into the area, into the state, you know, which is, I don't know, probably 10 years ago. So they enacted, you know, a bill that said, you know, rideshare companies will pay us a $10,000 annual fee. You know, so
okay. But we're not buying their gas, we're not paying for their insurance, any of that, right?
no, sir.
Okay. Right now, we're still subsidizing KV Cap, is that right?
I believe,
Did we still have
I
that in the
believe
budget?
that was out of the, we haven't made a payment.
We took that
on
out of this year's,
We did.
this year budget, okay.
Yep.
Finally, did we ever do an RFP for this sometime in the past? Do we need to?
No,
Is there a waiver ability if we had to?
Yeah, I'm talking with Corporation Counsel, with the urgency of something like this could qualify for a single source, because we've done so much work to find other alternatives, and
Yeah,
They don't exist.
I understand the urgency, I just.
yeah, but I've run it by Corporation Counsel.
All right, that's all I had. Anybody else have questions or want to further discuss? Go ahead, Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just I'm a person that owns a car. I very rarely need ride shares. So I was thinking about the fares and trying to understand what that means for a person who either doesn't have their car here or doesn't own a car. And I was looking up some average costs. To the average car loan payment in the city is about $600 a month, which, yeah, I'm glad my car's paid off right now. The per day, that's about $20 a day. So that's a ride one way, just in the car alone, not including the insurance, the fuel.
I'll give you an example.
like
I have a lady that I pick up every morning right now. I pick her up her days in. She just got a job with the state of Maine. I drop her off on Union Street. I charge her $10 each way. So she's going to pay me $100 tomorrow.
Yeah, I think this proposal with the range of rideshare fees, the bus fare, I think this could work for a lot of people, especially people who are looking not to own a car at this time. I think more and more people are choosing that. And I'm really excited to see where this could go. I think urgency may help us a little bit here because it's tempting to look for a perfect option where everything is known and we have all the security in place, but we may need to take a little bit of a leap and see what happens. And I think we're at that point. So thank you.
Further? Is the sentiment of the council to proceed with this option? So
Thank
you're asked or instructed to do
Yes.
whatever paperwork you need to do and
I'll have an,
get whatever authorization back from us that you need.
yes, I'll have an order next week for mayor and council for this, with the agreement portion. I'll have Cam working on that to get things going, and we'll work with an agreement that Cam will provide for, with Mr. Carney and Greenlight.
Anything else on this? Thank you, Earl. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Next item is C3, impact fees. Councilor Judkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is something that's been weighing on my mind. Again, our need to grow our revenue sources here within the city because of our restricted tax base with all of these non-taxable properties, tax-exempt properties. It strikes me that, in regards to pilots, that's a possibility, but with the hundreds of tax-exempt properties we have and the handful of those that step up and want to do a pilot being a payment in lieu of taxes to help out the community that you are within and to recognize that they plow the streets and pick up trash and provide emergency services. But they don't see the value. And I think until there's something on our books that forces some of these organizations to pay a little bit more attention to this, they're going to just continue to sit on their laurels and take advantage of what they have here. So I'd like to start focusing on what we can do. And I know I talked to the city manager and he had our council look at it. There seems to be maybe a little bit that we can do in regards to some pilots, forced pilots on income producing properties, rental properties that are owned by tax exempt people. So I would like to see if we could have the fortitude to go after and do that. Second is, my sense is when we have an organization that comes to us that is going to build a new building that is going to be tax exempt or take a property off our tax rolls and convert it, I would like to impose a 10% cost of the project impact fee paid to the city of Augusta for what we will have to spend over the years of servicing that property. Now, I don't know the full legalities of it. If we can, we can. I know it's probably going to be an uphill climb. I get that. And there'll be some of these that we can do this to and some that we can't. But I am tired of tax-exempt organizations coming in here. One most recently, they said, what do you have? Well, we've got 9 properties here. Do you pay any pilots? No. But they were looking for a nice fat TIF. And I get it. They were bringing something to the community that we really need, and I was okay to vote yes from the TIF, but very disappointed to know that they had no need to really do a pilot. Their sense was to, well, when we can afford it. And then one of our very capable colleagues here looked it up to see what they were making for profit, which I guess is public record, in the millions. So I guess I want to start, thinking about some of those things. When they come to us now for a TIF, comes to the TIF committee, it's like, how many other properties do you own here? Do you have a habit of doing a pilot? Is this something you would consider here? And my view is for TIFs, for people that aren't willing to, support our community back a little bit, I think this door needs to be closed. We need to pay more attention to what we're doing. I've talked in the past about doing some kind of a letter to encourage more pilots. And I know we've sent a little bit of stuff out, but I actually think, from what I read with the letter, it's pretty basic. I think we need to do a real educational campaign about the expenses of the city and our needs. We have a unique situation in Augusta with such a large percentage of our property non-taxable, with it being the state and Maine General, University, and, some big properties that are worth millions and millions and millions we don't get a penny for, but we have to service them. So I'm just trying to see if there's the will of the council to explore this deeper, to look at enacting the pilot program, to look at what kind of a legal situation will we get into to try to enact some impact fees for properties that are coming, being built and or coming off our tax rolls. Maybe even reconsider again a real marketing campaign to encourage pilots. I just want to start to see, if we could collect on 10% of this, it would go a long, long way to solving some of our tough budget situations. So It's way past due as far as I'm concerned. And I just want to know if we can move forward on this, or if you all think it's too big of a hill to climb and, or the rewards aren't enough.
Councilor Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, kind of off the cuff, we can't be the only municipality with this issue. So along that line, I think I won't be here next year, but I'd encourage after the election that we have our legislators in here to talk about it. So from that standpoint, I think the subject should be looked at in probably a comprehensive way, not just a pilot, but just overall issue of the number of nonprofits, particularly in Augusta, that we have. So my question, and I wish I knew the answer to this, I'm going to try to articulate as best I can. So the county tax is based on property valuation. I'm curious if the nonprofits, their property valuation is part of that calculation. If so, we should probably look at that from a legislative perspective.
Yeah, it's part of the formula, but it's part of some of the exemptions as well that's there. So there's a formula that offsets that.
From the county, so when the state tax assessors, because the state tax assessor certifies the amount of property we have in Augusta, the value of our property, and that drives the revenue share and also drives the bill from the county.
Correct.
When he certifies that, or she certifies that, it's a he now, say church owns a $5 million piece of property, is that part of that value?
Yeah, it's in there so that they see that, but when there's an exemption, kind of like our TIF exemptions and things like that, those are listed specifically exempt properties. There's a spreadsheet.
I'm not convinced it is with the county.
Yeah, that's what she provides as an explanation, but.
Who's she?
Christie?
Oh, no, I
Assessor.
mean, when the county assesses us the bill,
Right.
it's based on our property value certified by Maine Revenue.
Correct, but it's some of that's the data we provide as
Oh,
well.
so we're providing it to
Yeah.
Maine Revenue, and then he certifies
Correct.
it. Okay, all right.
Right.
I just want to make sure that we're not missing
Right,
any parts of that, which include property that's used to generate revenue.
correct.
I wonder if that should be part of it.
Yeah.
But I can't believe, we're the only municipality, and I think we need to look at it holistically, state share, revenue share, education share, all of that.
Yeah, if I may, this is a very, this is the year that there's going to be a lot of that. I attended the LPC meeting a couple weeks ago now, and that was the number one topic. They asked us to give the top 10 priorities, and that was how to raise more money at the local level to have less of a burden on the property tax. And all of these things are on the table. Big thing, local option taxes and different things like that. Pilots were mentioned. The service fees and the impact fees, they already exist. We can exercise those, and we can provide you with an explanation of how those would work. As Councilor Judkins alluded, with the impact fee or the service fees, right now you can only force a pilot, if you will, on a nonprofit that provides housing. So if it's a church, the hospital, that's not a force.
Rental housing.
Correct, rental, correct. So, but if that could change, if that law could be altered in such a way, and that's where we're going to bring in our legislative delegation, if you will, to have those discussions. I've already prompted one of them that's what we'll be looking at to have a direct conversation with the council. So I agree. We are going to look at this in comprehensive terms, and I'm on the LPC Legislative Policy Committee. I'm on the Service Center Coalition. We're all looking at those as well. We're meeting with a person next week to discuss that as well. So I think this is the year if we're going to get any momentum with the state, because I think people are fed up with their property taxes, and we need to capture what's happening.
And I just want to say for the record that one size doesn't fit all. So as an example, I can speak firsthand about South Parish that has the warming center. We could not afford to pay any property tax. our budget is that tight. It's like 30 people left in that church. We do the warming center, AA meetings. Meanwhile, there are nonprofits in town that most certainly could afford to pay property tax. So I think we need to be careful when we start to categorize and talk. You know, one size doesn't fit all. Not everyone is the same. So just proceed with caution in that regard. That's what I would just say. Thank you.
Got some issue?
Trying to understand, a pilot, is a pilot just a fancy name for a tax?
It stands for pay in lieu of tax. So so if you don't have to pay taxes, you pay a portion, if you will. And the letters we send out tells them specifically, if you were to pay a property tax, it would be this amount. And we ask them to pay that or something there. So
Wouldn't a maintenance fee to a property be, again, to cover plowing the streets and picking up the trash and doing all the things that the taxpayers are now burdened to pay? I would think that would sound better than a maintenance fee. Sounds to me more appropriate for something like that, because I agree. I think we all agree that, you know, we have millions and millions and millions of dollars of non-taxable properties in Augusta, and some of those, again, like Councilor Lynn said, you know, on a case-by-case basis. But if somebody owns a building and it's a nonprofit building, no matter who it is, I think that they should be subject to, again, some type of maintenance fee to help offset the cost, because everybody else has to pay for it. So I just think that sharing that burden, whether you're a nonprofit or not, we should look at all the opportunities, because again, you know, this year more than any, we have been kicked right in the knees, and you know, it's really come to the forefront. So anything that we can do, and whatever, if there's any other pilots in other communities, or anything that we can find out that can help us to capture, I don't want to say capture, but find a way for all of these nonprofits to be able to help at least pay for the infrastructure of the city.
Councilor Singowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions from Matt Nazar's memo to the council. One of the things that I was wondering about is the service charges. I guess my overall thing is that in order to move in a direction with this, I think I would like to see some financial history in order to understand what we're talking about. So when Matt Nazar talked about the service charges, my main concern was getting into something where we spend a significant chunk of staff time figuring this out to get a certain amount of money back, and that staff time is not free. So trying to find whether or not these things are worth doing, right? Similarly, with the impact fees, I think I have not tracked well over time the amount that is happening. So here, the memo references the complete rebuild, narrowing, and traffic calming of the Amherst Street sidewalk proposed to be constructed by the Capitol Heights developer. I'm pretty sure that probably came up at some point in time, but I don't remember when that came up and what the cost associated is. So when I'm thinking about these two things, I'm thinking if we, in that instance, had assessed a 10% impact fee to that development, is that equivalent in any way compared to the sidewalk?
yeah, and that's a great question. So impact fees separate from service fees. And
Yes.
I'll get back to that, service fees after, but impact fees we use now, not very often, because the issue with impact fees is anything we commit, if we require a developer to assess a 10% impact fee, and we've done it on, there's a litany of places, Townsend Road, there was an impact fee, I can list a bunch of others, but when we do that, we also have to commit city dollars to the other percentage. And the impact fee basically deals with the infrastructure, the roads, utilities, things like that. So in the Amherst Street example of Capitol Heights, where they're going to build, there's going to be an access that is because of that development. So we feel they should pay for that, and there's a percentage. But the other percentage comes out of our pocket as well. So it's not always 100% and it can't be, is my understanding. It has to be a kind of what their impact would be, not the rest of the community using that. So it's broken down to a percentage. So, Matt has educated me on, traditionally, we haven't used a lot of impact fees just because now we've got a budget for our portion if we're going to require that. Service fees a little different, in that, we could give you an exact number of how many rental nonprofit we have, what we would capture, and then, we could provide that information to you. Is it worth the staff time and doing that type thing? So we can get you that information as well.
Yeah, I think the service fee component, that would be really helpful, as long as I'm not sure what I'm asking in terms of staff time to get that information.
It's not much.
Okay. And then the impact fees, from what I took from the memo, is that we currently mostly use, was it exacted negotiation? And not impact fees as
Right.
often. And that there seemed to be a narrative that those exacted negotiations have worked better for us. Is there a way to show any of that financially?
Come on up. Yeah, I think it might take some time, but, what Matt's going to say, I'll steal a bit of his thunder, but that negotiated takes us out of the mix. You're going to give us X amount of dollars to deal with this, as opposed to a strict impact fee.
There's a statutory structure for something that is considered an impact fee. So in order to create an impact fee, you have to actually create an ordinance. In order to create an impact fee ordinance, it would have to be specific for a specific type of impact fee. Many communities have traffic impact fees because that's where a lot of the cost ends up coming from developments, is off-site traffic impacts. So improvements to intersections, widening of roads, modifications. Townsend Road is a great example. Modification to Townsend Road that makes it safer for individuals from what it was prior to the island being put down and traffic calming being done. If you were to create an impact fee ordinance, it is 100% mathematical and formulaic. It's based, for something like a traffic impact fee, you would use the developer's calculation of what their traffic volume impact would be on that road. You would also have the municipalities or the public impact of the volume that was using that road, and it would be a formulaic share of the cost. If the development was going to be generating 10% of the traffic on that road and the municipality was going to be generating 90% of the traffic on that road from other public traffic that occurs, then the municipality would be responsible for 90% of the cost of that improvement. The development would be responsible for 10% of the cost. That's the same basic formula that you would have for school impact fees or public park impact fees. What the city of Augusta has traditionally done is, as I mentioned in the memo, is something that's called more a negotiated exaction. That's basically where you sit down with the developer, determine what the project is going to create for off-site impacts as part of its development, and say, look, the municipality doesn't have a budget for this. If you want this project to move forward, this is part of your costs. And that's the way that has traditionally occurred in the city of Augusta. For example, the improvements to Townsend Road, which are rather substantial, were paid for entirely by the marketplace.
Great, thank you for that history, Matt, and the way it functions right now. Is there a historical record of those negotiations?
No,
Yeah.
not really. I mean, you'd have to go back in our financial records with audit and see what you could potentially pull out, and see what's there. There's not a lot that has occurred because we have in the past done some that were actually a little more hybrid, essentially, where the developer provided us with a fee that we set aside for a project that we thought might have to happen in the future, and that they would be responsible for this percentage of that project. In some cases, those projects have occurred. The traffic signal that is at the intersection of Anthony Ave and Civic Center Drive was done that way. There were a number of businesses that went into the business park. They paid a fee to the city, and then when the project moved forward, actually what we ended up doing, because the state did that project on Civic Center Drive, we handed them the impact fee that we had collected, and they covered the remainder of the cost on that. So that the city didn't actually have the additional cost. The additional public cost was paid for by the state. There are a couple of others that we have right now where we thought there might be impacts based on the developments when it was created. They provided us with a fee that we set in a separate fund. We have not used those fees because those impacts did not occur. Those intersection improvements were not necessary, and we're required by law to refund those fees. We can't use them for something else. They're very specific for that development and for that issue. So it's a real mixture as to how these things work, very specific and dependent on the development and what the issue is. It's not some sort of flat fee that you can simply say, we're going to charge you 10% of the project cost.
Okay. I think, I don't know if this exists. It sounds like maybe it doesn't. In a perfect world, what I would like to have to make this decision is either historical data showing what the city has gained from the negotiated exactions versus what impact fees might look like, or a projection, if that is, and I'm aware that both of those things may be too high, but maybe we could shoot toward something like them.
We could make an educated guess, but it would very much be an educated guess because we don't have an impact fee ordinance, and creating those formulas, one, creating the formulas is a fair amount of work to create an impact fee ordinance, and two, the exact amount that would be collected in an impact fee, a formulaic ordinance-driven impact fee, is very dependent on whatever the development might end up being. One development might have a larger impact fee than another because it has higher traffic generation if it's a traffic impact fee. Whereas if you're negotiating an exaction, you might negotiate the exact same dollar amount, all of the project, to either of the developers. So if it's a $30,000 intersection improvement, the developer that has low traffic impact would pay the full $30,000. If they have a high traffic impact, they'd be building the exact same thing. With an impact fee, a formula-driven impact fee, the developer with lower traffic might actually pay less, and the municipality pay more. The one with the higher traffic impact might pay more, and the municipality would pay a different share. So it's really hard to predict. It's very much dependent on what development comes in.
Thank you. At this point, I need to think about this a little bit more because my main concern is I concur with my fellow counselors that, and it sounds like the state of Maine, that we need to figure out revenue streams. My concern is going down a road and finding it more constraining than alleviating the issue. But I appreciate that. And I also wanted to note I know that city staff do a lot of work to make these things happen for us, but being reminded in this way is really useful that there are many things that we have gained through the developments in the city because our staff knew the impact and went about and did that negotiating. So thank you for that. The last thing I wanted to say, as a council, we often talk about TIFs, and we all do it, and it is easier to talk that way. What we're really talking about is credit enhancement agreements, and I want to be clear for the public. There is a distinction in that the TIF itself is not giving money back to the developer unless we agree to a credit enhancement agreement, and those two things can be separate. You have a credit enhancement agreement under a TIF, but not every TIF has a credit enhancement agreement with it. So when we're talking about TIFs, there are two components there, and the one that brings up the most concern is the credit enhancement agreement. Thank you.
And the only thing I'd add on TIFs is obviously TIFs are always on taxable property.
Yes.
You don't give a TIF to a to a tax exempt property. There's no taxes to provide back to them.
Thank you, Matt.
Councilor Lilly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate Councilor Judkins bringing this up. I think it is time, especially after our budget season this year. We do need to be creative in our partnerships and trying to find ways to help alleviate the tax burden of our citizens. I also appreciate Councilor Lynn bringing up the fact that a service fee or something like that to a pretty good program here in the city could be detrimental. So there's got to be a fine line somewhere, and I'm interested to see if we can find where that is. The one that I want to look forward mostly for me is, and it sounds like what's happening, and we need to wait until the upcoming election season, is we do need to have a better partnership with our state delegation. The city of Augusta has been a good partner for a long time with the city or with the state. They're the largest employer here in the city, and it's difficult to say that the largest employer doesn't necessarily help us on our property tax. I know there's economic growth that comes from that, but since COVID, there's less people that come in that work for the city. They work from home. I know that that's not the same for everybody, but the amount of people coming in, buying gas, going to the gas station, going out to eat, those people, they're just not the same numbers that they used to be before. So I think times have changed. I think it's important for us to engage with the state and start to advocate for ourselves again, that we need some help with paying the property tax or alleviating that. So I'm not entirely sure where this conversation goes directly right now until we can probably have some of those conversations on a larger base. But I do think it's important that we get creative and we try to find ways to help our citizens. So appreciate this getting brought up. I am concerned of maybe holding us in a way where we wouldn't be able to ask the right people for the right stuff. And I really do think that the state needs to help us here in the city be a better partnership moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Morris-Polly.
Yes, thank you very much. So in kind of listening to this, I'm thinking that when I hear impact fees, I'm thinking that that really isn't a nonprofit-oriented development. Sounds to me like that would be more of a for-profit development. And so really what we would be looking at more would be the service charges. So I know I'd looked at this, probably about a year ago, and I don't recall the total number of tax-exempt properties, but what stood out to me is that there were a couple of, besides the one building, one owner, not really doing an income-generating service, there were a couple other things that kind of stood out. One of them was that we had, I think, around 27 churches in the city. And so that was a high number for me. I mean, that's a lot of churches. But I also know that churches don't really do an income-generating service necessarily. The other thing that stood out was residential rental properties that were attached to service providers. And I think that these properties, there was a number of them, I want to say around 30 of them, and they continue to kind of expand in the city. And they do use a lot of our city services. I don't know if ambulance services kind of fits underneath what we would look at for something that would be assessed underneath charges, but I think that those are a service that they use quite a bit, probably the trash, the plowing, things such as that. So I do think that there's an area here that we should explore on what type of nonprofit we're looking at and whether or not it falls underneath, and what it seems like is it falls underneath this main law that allows that to be assessed on residential rental properties. For me, I think we should start in a certain spot that we know that we're allowed to do under law, and we already have somewhat of the data because we have them on our list of nonprofits. And I think that we really need to look at, what is their annual earning? Like, does that include the residential rental that they're getting, or does it also include the service that they're providing? What is that annual income really based on? Because I know that some of these will separate out the buildings from the service provider, and some of these won't. So I think that that's something that we'd probably want to look at. But to me, that seems like a really good place to start, because I do think that when we look at what properties are coming off the tax roll into nonprofits, we're really looking at the residential rental properties, and their information, the 501c3, is public record. So you really can look to see whether or not they have that ability to provide a pilot or be able to be assessed a service charge without doing any real financial harm to them, but also being able to contribute to our taxes. So that's where I think we should really start on this, in my opinion, because we already have an avenue to be able to do that. Thank you.
So I think everybody's had a chance to talk once on it. So let's go around a second time. Councillor Lynn?
So I think we kind of went down a couple of rabbit holes there. I don't think anyone's talking about impact fees for development. I think it was a generic term, not a specific technical term, but rather just recognizing the impact of nonprofits and others on the city.
Yeah, we just wanted to define impact
We
fee
need to be
for
careful.
you.
Words matter, so I'm going to get back, Council Lilly was great in mentioning, we've got to get back to having the legislature in front of us. We've got to recognize that, when you talk about state property, I think increased security in the last 5 to 10 years has really gone up, and the impact to us and our police department has gone up. I think that needs to be recognized. Service centers. If you look across the state, service centers are taking a big hit, particularly in the opioid crisis. I think that needs to be recognized. So it is hard to try to define a nonprofit. That's an art. And many of them are gifted at finding the right legal umbrella to cover them. But I think the legislature, and like you said, the LPC, I'm sure, we've got to get back to really reviewing that revenue share. I think we've got to get our legislators in here and saying, look, we need some help. And it can't be just us. I know Portland went through some of this grind lately, and other municipalities are, and I just think Augusta is unique with the state capital sitting here. But, I do want to talk about nonprofits. If you look at the Augusta Food Bank, I mentioned a pilot, and, really you don't want to take away from their mission. They have one little piece of property. But there are others that, if they're renting their property and they're making a profit in rental, that's a whole different category. And I think we need to look at that. But I get back to that holistic approach in terms of revenue share. I think that's where we got to go.
Councillor Jenkins?
Thank you. I'd like to echo what Councilor Morris-Polly said. I think that's right. That's the place to start. We know right there that we can legally do that. I think the formula is like 3% or some such thing. So that's a given. We don't need data points on that. We just know that we're allowed. And so it'd be good to know from staff how many of those are out there, how many income producing rental properties that these folks are collecting on. That's a good place to start. I think a second thing we can do is a better crafted letter to all of these nonprofits, something that is pleading our case. We have a wonderful marketing director here. And if she needs help, there's ChatGPT. So I think that we can do a letter that pleads our case much better. We did just a very straight business form type thing. But I think we can make a much more compelling argument, make the attempt. If it reaches one person's heart and they start paying, then it's worth the letter, okay? The other thing, you had mentioned about the service center thing, the conversation you're going to be having, Mr. Manager. That's another part of this. A lot of people don't realize our tax bill's three things. It's the city, it's the schools, and it's county government. This year, I think our county government, I think we paid, what, $3.2 million. We pay more to Kennebec County government than any other municipality in Kennebec County. Ourselves and Waterville are the two service centers in Kennebec County. We get hit hard because of the unhoused and those types of situations. We're the ones that are running, homeless shelters and supporting them and things like that. I've often thought that just like you can get a homestead exemption with the city for your taxes, that we ought to be able to get a service center exemption from the county, at least to some extent. That any service center in any county in the state of Maine ought to be entitled to some kind of a service center exemption and what they wind up paying county taxes to help share that burden. Because Hollowell's not writing us a check, and Randolph isn't, and Chelsea isn't, and I don't think Manchester is, and I'm pretty sure Gardner hasn't sent any money. So this would then spread that burden so that we can get at least some relief for the weight we carry for all these other surrounding communities. So maybe that can come up in the conversation. I know we've got to talk to our state representatives to accomplish this. We're not going to, this isn't something we can just make an ordinance about, what have you. But if we can start with the apartment ones and write a better letter and then start to have more robust and good discussions with state representation, maybe we can make some inroads. It's going to be a long haul, but anything that comes out of it, again, we talk about building our tax base. Well, we've got some existing tax base if we can just find the right way to start tapping into that a little bit. Again, we don't need a ton, just 10% would make a world of difference for this community. So, thank you.
This may be a long shot too, but the city manager is helping compile some information. There's one of these national mayors organizations, and they're doing a survey right now about how communities around the country cope with tax-exempt property, particularly state-owned tax-exempt property, and they're collecting data and collecting information about what towns and cities do in response to that in terms of collecting money. So we're going to respond to that survey in hopes that they'll compile all that stuff and share it back with us. And there may be something that's happening somewhere else that could work here too. So don't know when that will get turned around, but that's another rabbit hole we're climbing down to try to get an idea. I think it's great to work with our legislative delegation. I think what past experience has told us that if it's just an Augusta type thing or a service center type thing, it's a very compelling argument for those communities. But when you're talking to all the legislators from around the country, around the state, they're less interested in helping out the Portlands and Augustas and Bangors and Watervilles when they get their own concerns. And they'll point to us and say, well, you should be glad you have state government. You should be glad you have state government here. So, but it's always nothing ventured, nothing gained. And there may be a twist on it, the service aspect of it, as opposed to just paying your fair share of real estate taxes. It's certainly worth pursuing, I would say. Councilor Morse Polly.
Yeah, I just wanted to do one closing for myself, is that there are, I want to say, 14 nonprofits in the city who are paying pilots. Yes. And I think that that's really important to note, that this isn't all of our nonprofits, that there are some that are contributing. And if I recall correctly, what they're contributing is relatively sufficient for probably the services that they are receiving.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Yep.
Mr. Manager.
Mayor, if I will, to one more, there's several things, one more initiative, I guess we'll say, we're looking at too, and this was started with Councilor Austin, who's not here, he's working away, he let us know, but he found several, and I say, when several under 10 capitals in the country that receive state funding, the municipalities, the capital within that state that actually receive state funding for being kind of a service fee or impact fee. When you talk about you can't, tax state property, this is a way in which they go directly to those state capital cities, if you will, like we qualify. So our economic development group is working that as well. So that's going to be one of the items we're bringing forward to our legislative delegation as well, because there's some successful programs that are happening not far from us. So there's some New England states that are doing it too. So.
Councilor Sienkiewicz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City manager just reminded me of the memo that was sent a couple weeks ago about similar items, and that I think is an important piece of this conversation, that work that I believe Keith Luke is doing, and I'm forgetting who else is involved with that. But along with these various, the local option sales tax route, I believe there was a hybrid route from maybe Wisconsin that included a couple different revenue streams. So when that is ready, I would love for that to be on an informational agenda so that we can also add that to our discussion.
Yeah, if I may, I envision having that list for you well in advance when we bring our delegation in to have that discussion, and I will have meetings with them directly as well, but you'll have that chance to talk to them and bring up your programs you want to highlight to them as well, because there's several out there, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further? All right, that's a good discussion. Let's move on to item C4, delay of the first installment of property tax interest payments until December 1, 2026. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I mentioned in the pre-meeting last week, we have committed our taxes on April 7th. What the commitment means is our mill rate was set and given to the city clerk, so she was able to then calculate the tax bills for each property that can then go out. So obviously, we are about a week behind where we were last year because of the revaluation. And you all passed an ordinance or an order, which was a standard order that you do every year, that talks about our first tax payment being September 24th with interest starting the next day. What we would like to propose to all of you is where we are slightly behind in getting the tax bills out. They still will be out in time for that September 24th payment, if you will, first payment. What we suggest is that we delay any interest payments because of the revaluation and everything going on, to give folks a chance to actually digest their bill when they get that, and then have a chance. So we're not suggesting changing when the actual bill is due, the 24th, but we will not collect interest on the bill until December 1st. So delaying that 2 months to give folks a chance. And if you're all willing to do that, or the majority is willing to do that, then we would put an order on next week's agenda that we would have that in stone, if you will, and folks would know that when they receive their bill that they want to pay, they're still going to pay on the 24th, but knowing that if they can't, their interest is not going to accrue until December 1st.
Councilor Lynn?
I want to be clear, because you used two different terms just then. I don't think you meant to.
Please.
Initially, you said assess, and then you said calculate. What you're proposing is to defer charging interest.
Correct.
Until the 1st of December.
Let's use defer.
Okay.
On
Yes.
any late payments?
Correct, yes.
So the interest calculation will start
December
December
1st.
Okay.
Yeah, as of right now, the order says the interest calculation, or it starts the day after.
Okay.
September 24th, when the first bill's due, and that's standard every year.
I've just got to ask, why December 1st? What was the logic between?
Giving people ample time. Like I said, right now, where we're at is the tax bills are all in our system. People can call and find out what they are now, but they're actually at the mailer So all of the tax bills are at the mailer, and we're having them sent back to us for proof, and we're waiting to get that from the mailing company. So once we get that, then tax bills will be sent, we'll proof it, and then it'll be sent back to the mailer and then mailed out. So I suspect we're going to be a few weeks behind what we are in traditional years, getting the tax bills out to folks. So if they get it the 1st of September, they're going to still have 24 days to pay, but we don't want, I wouldn't suggest starting the interest payments the day after September 24th to laying that out.
I was just wondering if anybody was considering January 1st to get by the holidays.
Yeah, we feel probably 1 month would be consistent with, we're going to be less than 1 month behind, but giving them 2 months, I wouldn't be recommending
Okay, all right.
January.
I just
Yeah.
throwing it out there.
Yeah, we're again, thinking that time frame where we'll give folks that extra.
It is just the timing. It's just the impact of the reval is going to be substantial. I mean, my property tax is going up 36%. I mean, 36%.
Understood.
That's not unusual across the city. So, given the economy, I just don't see a huge difference between December 1st and January 1st, other than the holidays are in there. That's all. But just a thought.
As we discussed last week in the pre-meeting, that was the date that she's put in, and that's gone to the mailers, and that's what we're recommending, so.
Anyone else? Council Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To throw my 2 cents into that discussion, I believe one of the variables was also distance between the two payments, the fall payment and the March payment, and not wanting to burden people too close together with those payments.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate staff bringing forward this idea of kind of a grace period where you're able to take some time to get used to this new payment and then also have some space in between before the next half is due. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
I presume we don't face a cash flow problem if we have a bunch of late payments.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we always go to our finance director for that. And she said we've done it in years past with that type of delay, and it was about a minimal, $15,000 to $20,000 is what we were looking at for that type of delay. So not a cash flow issue by doing that.
All right, good. Do you need an order for doing that, or is it just going to implement? Oh,
No, I do.
We're going to change the order, right?
Yeah,
okay.
we'll have a new order for you, just basically changing the one line of the next week if you want to put that on mayor and council.
Yeah.
City manager, mayor and council.
You want to, well,
Yeah.
is everybody on board with that? Okay, yeah, city, mayor and council,
Thank
and manager if you want.
No, yeah.
Everybody.
We'll all do it. Thank you very much.
All right, C5, land use ordinance amendments with respect to daycares.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll have Matt Nazar come up and give his very condensed version of the new changes to comply with state law.
Good evening, councilors, Mr. Mayor, Matt Nazar, Director of Development Services. Yes, the changes that are before you today with respect to daycares are the result of changes that have in state law and where daycares are required to be allowed with respect to zoning. Our existing ordinance complied with prior state law. The recommendations in front of you will comply with current state law, and what that effectively does is allow daycares to occur any place where that is zoned for residential use. The way the planning board interpreted that was any place where residences could potentially be constructed. So the only two zoning districts that would not allow a daycare to occur would be the industrial zoning district and the government services zoning district, which is basically the airport and Camp Keys. So that's what these changes are. Fairly straightforward. And like I say, it's simply bringing the ordinance into compliance with state law.
Is there anywhere in the city presently where daycares are a conditional use as opposed to a permitted use?
Currently, I couldn't answer that right off the top of my head. I think for larger daycare centers, the answer is yes.
But this changed just.
This would
the
change
small.
that to, this would change that to permitted uses. If something was being constructed, a building was being constructed as a result of a daycare center being put in or being added to, and it still triggered site plan review, those things would still be required, but it would be allowed to go forward if it met site plan review standards. Traffic circulation, those sorts of things. For smaller daycares, daycares that are 12 or smaller, they're required to be treated like single-family residential homes. So there are no parking requirements, no other requirements as required by state law now.
Yeah, I was looking at the statute. It says that basically they shall be permitted uses. And I didn't know whether that was a term of art when they used that, whether they were thinking about the distinction between permitted and conditional uses or.
Yes, the state was absolutely thinking about those, yes.
All right. Other questions or discussion? Move it ahead for council action to adopt?
Yes, thank you.
Put it on for next week as a first read.
Yes. All right, C6, we're going to postpone to another meeting. So, are there anything that anybody wants to bring up? Any announcements? Council Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The library's book sale kicked off technically last night with a lot of success with their pre-sale. You had to buy kind of a ticket for entrance. The bake sale went on today. The book sale continues tomorrow. The hours of the library is open at 9 to 4:30 actually, and then Saturday 9 to noon. I also wanted to thank Public Works for their work on Old Winthrop Road. The intersection with Layton Road has been overgrown for some time, and they have been doing some significant work pushing back that foliage to make it much safer. And as someone who travels that intersection quite often, it is noticeable, and that work is going really, really well. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Councilor Michoud?
Just a reminder that this Sunday at the Augusta Civic Center is the 10th annual Greater Augusta Back to School program, backpack giveaway, and all kinds of things going on that day there. So we're hoping that the kiddos get quite a day out of it, all kinds of things happening there. If anybody would like to volunteer, we're asking the volunteers to be there between 11:30 and 12. We never say no to help, but the Greater Augusta Back to School program, annual backpack giveaway, Augusta Civic Center, this Sunday from 1 to 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Other councilors? Mr. Manager, anything?
No report, Your Honor.
All right. If there's no further discussion or business, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.